Hello everybody and welcome to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup Qualifier number 2 Moxie, and we're back once again after Qualifier number 1, which was honestly incredibly exciting. And to come back into Qualifier number 2 with Moxie, I'm incredibly excited to see what's in store for us today.
Yeah, it's an absolute honor to get to be back on the Calling All Heroes cast this desk, Dustin. This is a brilliant initiative that is brought to us between Overwatch and the Overwatch League, which has the mission of building an inclusive and competitive game space and environment for everyone, including marginalized genders, so that not only can they develop skills to be able to play with teams and really try and compete in that competitive scene, it also runs in tandem alongside the Path to Pro, with the hope that a lot of these teams are actually going to be participating in open division at the same time, carrying the skills that they're able to learn and build here over towards that area to be able to integrate into other parts of the competitive scene of Overwatch 2.
Yeah, and if you want to check out more, please go to callingallheroes.gg to look into it a bit more. But guys, let's show you a little bit of a replay from Qualifiers number 1, which like we mentioned, what's exciting as heck. So let's show you some highlights back from that Qualifiers, which happened last month. Hello, Calling All Heroes. Welcome to the Challengers Cup for the Calling All Heroes tournament.
Of course, Ruby is there with the defense matrix to just eat up as much of that barrage as possible. That's how you endure. The res is successful on the cool guy. I am surprised that that was not shut down, and he gets 2 kills during the barrage. Ruby has the self-destruct available, and there it is, gonna have to be used. Beautiful. There's the EMP on top of it all. No one's available to run away.
The grab's already here, and there's nothing to save them through that damage as the beat drop was not built yet for Quiet. So Batchy finds the kill, pops the tack visor as well. They could still fall, but the ancient aid comes through into Batchy. Will they fall? No! Wall extremely low. They found 3 kills with their tack visor.
On the Reinhardt charges forward, but that means that the Reinhardt isn't that to appeal for the rest of the team. And there's nothing to slow him in time. The blade comes through. And all of that space that the Barra should have created is denied.
Online, so might be able to hold that all, but that early pick, that's all they needed.
Oh, man, and it is just a free-for-all in the back line there for Nanai.
Oh, again! What a barrage to pick off Bun early. They also got the Suzu on them early, but the 3K for Fawn.
Damage orb comes through. Coalescence to catch on to the players and make sure that Polaris, even with the Graviton, have no players in position to be able to capitalize off of the back of it. Coming in full control of Choke. Graviton, the second Polaris showed their face. They try and use the rush, but it's a little bit too late. The animation startup finishes, but the team is already in pieces.
Congratulations to Altiora Artemis for winning the Challengers Cup Qualifiers number 1. All right, well, let's see who's going to qualify for this weekend's, as we mentioned last weekend, or last qualifiers rather. Altiora Artemis, Altiora Polaris, 1:30 time zone in Shikigami, all qualified in qualifier number 1, which every series that weekend was a barn burner of a series, Moxie.
Yeah, I remember the matchup with Altiora Artemis versus Altiora Polaris in that grand final. And oh my goodness, Polaris making that lower bracket run back to be able to go back to back against Artemis. And it really did go down to the absolute wire on some of those matches. But those 4 teams have qualified into the main event in December. We still have to figure out the rest of those 4 other teams that are going to be able to make it in for that play. And it's going to come down to all of the teams that are participating this weekend. And Dustin, we have some absolutely stacked rosters. It's going to be a Swiss stage for the first 2 days, which does mean that we're going to be heading into a first to 2 format before we head over to November 20th, where the matches take a little bit longer, becoming a best of 5 in those grand finals, with the top 4 teams managing to advance into the final event in December and getting to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Polaris, Artemis, 1:30 time zone, and Shikigami. However, one thing we do have to mention as well is that these players are playing on live patch, Justin, so you know what that means. So it's going to be a different bit of meta. Still going to be the same map pool. We're still going to have places like Paraiso and Esperanza coming in for push. but we are going to most likely see a variety of different heroes in comparison to qualifiers number 1, which really anchored around the Zarya and the Kiriko being integrated together. With Zarya getting that nerf, it's much more likely that we're going to see the meta that we saw from the Overwatch League Grand Finals, which is Winston coming into the mix with Genji being booted out and Reaper taking his place. And I, for one, am here for it, although I know that you have your eye on a different tank hero.
Well, obviously, I mean, like you mentioned, Winston will be included for sure. But on the other side, in ranked and a lot of the actual game itself, people have been playing Roadhog because, as I would say, there's two types of tank players, right, Moxie? There's tank players that can play like the Reinhardt, Winston, and there's tank players that can play like the Zarya, the Diva, and the Roadhog. It's just the people that enjoy aiming a bit more rather than the big brain galactic dives or like the perfectly timed Reinhardt shields and stuff like that. So, it's up in the air. It really depends on who's playing what in this qualifier. And Moxie, I mean, everything's up in the air based on who could play what, right? I mean, we have so many different teams, especially that qualified in the first qualifier. In the second one, obviously there's some talent that maybe got left out in that first qualifier, which is now looking to prove a point in the second one.
Not just that as well, but we are having so much support for Calling All Heroes initiative that Overwatch League teams, after the first qualifiers, saw that, okay, there is a position. We were seeing some contenders teams with the likes of Altiora making that label, making that safe space for some of these marginalized genders. And Vancouver Titans actually did the exact same thing. They extended an invitation out to players and they formed their own team to be able to enter in Vancouver Titans Blue. And they're definitely one of those favorites to watch, right? They've got access to all of those resources that the Overwatch League team has, so all of that coaching, all of that support is going to be there in mass for this team, and I'm definitely going to have my eye on them. But Altiora teams really do have a lot that they bring to the table off of qualifiers number 1. They just looked extremely strong, as we were actually getting to see one of those Altiora teams in game number 1. It's going to be Altiora Summit going up against Alternate Lanterns, and this is going to be a doozy because both of these teams are pretty evenly matched when it comes to competitive ranking.
Oh, yeah. It's going to be scary to see who actually can come out on top because it's a first to 2. So really, it's not like an extended series where you get to see these teams really going really far into the brink of losing because they'll have chances, right? This is just a Swiss qualifier. So, after this, they will have to continue to push forward, hopefully end up with a good record because, at the end of the day, you still have to play your matches. You have to do well in the Swiss before you go into the actual playoff for this qualifier. But both teams, like you mentioned, are expected to do well. And with the first match being this one, Moxie, like you said, are you excited to see this series or what?
I'm really excited to see this. It's going to be new patch, it's going to be new teams. We've even got some returning teams as well who weren't able to be successful in qualifiers number 1 coming back, which is always an absolute pleasure as we get to look at Altiora Summit's roster. I know that Snotty asked to have Doomfist as their hero pictured. I don't think we're going to get to see her actually play the Doomfist. It's much likely either going to be the Winston or the Roadhog, but if we do see the Doom pick coming through, I wouldn't complain.
No, I wouldn't either. I mean, well, I would hate to play against it, but as a spectator, I mean, Doomfist is a character that we haven't seen for quite some time. So to see him back would be really exciting. And to see even maybe Junkrat be played today, Moxie, as well, after the nerfs that came through with him, I'm curious to see if they actually decide to play that character. But obviously, Sojourn has been a staple at the highest level, which Moxie, I mean, it seems like Sojourn is not going to leave anytime soon, especially after the recent patch changes that we are on.
Yeah, Sojourn untouched definitely shows that she's going to be extremely dominant in this meta, and she is just bringing so much to the table in terms of diversibility in the amount of kills that you can find with her, and also when she really pops off in early and late fights. But we can have a look at Alternate Lanterns roster, as Prince Mew was actually one of those players. I do believe he was on very small eggs in qualifier number 1, wasn't able to make it into the playoffs or find themselves a spot on that top 4 teams to be able to make it into the December main event. So he's coming back in with a different team. It's going to be really interesting to see how these players are able to go up against one of those Altiora teams, because as we pointed out, Altiora is a label that has had a lot of teams coming into the Calling All Heroes qualifiers, and a lot of those teams have found a lot of success.
Yeah, that team carries a lot of weight as we move into Busan. As we know, I mean, Altiora really has a lot of leeway in the Calling All Heroes and the Challengers Cup specifically because both of their teams got spots number 1 and 2 in the last qualifiers. So because they did that, coming into qualifier number 2, they've really, led by example. Now, obviously, these are completely different players. They have their own reputations to build off of, and in which I'm sure they are. All of these players, I'm sure you could find them on social media if you just look for their Twitter page out there, because coming into Busan, Moxie, I mean, alternate lanterns, they have a lot of pressure on them to beat an Altiora team.
Yeah, Busan, one of those maps as well where we might actually get to see that pick of the Junkrat coming on through, especially if we head over towards Mecha Base. Just with the closed up hallways, it's really good for Junkrat players to just be able to bounce off those damages, because yes, he just get a little bit of a nerf, but it was in the trap utility rather than the actual damage that he's able to put down, or the ricochet capacity as well. So he is still going to be just as dangerous in claustrophobic spaces as he was prior to the nerf coming on through. And Summer, I see you teasing the Doomfist. I'm not going to say anything until you actually get outside of those spawn doors, because this composition, it's going to be, if they actually, there it is. There it is. If they actually come out of this, it was going to be extremely feast or famine, but no, Schnorty is going to go over to that Winston. Summer immediately going to be swapping into the full meta. Alternate Lanterns actually opting for something very similar, but keeping the Genji in over the Reaper.
Wow.
That is interesting, considering Genji not only got nerfed, he got doubly nerfed. It's going to be very hard to be able to keep up with the damage that Sade's able to put out.
Well, they're trying to go for the hard dive to make up for that damage just through the overall DPS, maybe on the dives. He does find Prism, but at the same time, on the other side, Starfy and Nubeki both take down Prince Mew and Feywild Fox. So now alternate lanterns have to fall back, losing those two. Even though they did find that Genji trade-off immediately, Altiora do sustain and capture the point first.
Yeah, Genji with the nerfs coming on through, he has far less shurikens. Like 6 less shurikens is quite a big difference. You are going to be reloading a lot more often than you would previously, as well as the fact its damage got tapped down by 2 for every single shuriken hit as well. Does mean that he's going to have a very hard job trying to keep up with the damage burst that is there for Summit. He still has some ability though, so they can actually still go into that backline and try and find those picks, and that's exactly what Lanterns are trying to set up. The problem is the Genji just doesn't have the damage to be able to burst through the Winston bubble.
No, and it doesn't, especially with that speed from Nubsky onto Starfy. I mean, it's just impossible to deal with that Reaper that runs onto you, because now Altiora Summit, they're building those ultimates, Moxie. They have 70 on Primal Rage, 70 on that Kuriko, on the Kitsune Rush, and alternate. They're barely 50 and 50 on their Blade in Primal.
And here comes the swaps. Lantern's actually going to be opting for Serena to come in on to that Reaper. Prince Mew going over to the Ana to try to better equip T when that dive does come through, giving that boost of the Nano towards the Genji Blade, or even trying to use it for shambles to make sure that the Winston has a little bit more space provided when that dive does start to hit.
Ooh. But in the meanwhile, the Disruptor Shot came in from Prism, also the shots, but the Resurrect, that's why they swapped to Mercy. But also they don't have speed to try to get into this fight. They have to drop their bubble early, and now they lose Faye on the other side, so it looks like alternate lanterns are kind of lost without them. Starfy does get Prince and T as well. Serena trying to do something on the other side, but immediately Primal Raged by Snorty, and that's a little bit of a sustain that all they need to close out onto alternate lanterns. And now with 80% on the board, they did use the Continue Rushing and Primal Rage, so maybe alternate can come back with ultimates of their own.
Yeah, Summit using those 2 ultimates to actually stall the fight into lasting longer for Lanterns, as they have not been able to regroup. We're headed into final fight territory. The overclock is going to be there for Prism, and alternate Lanterns have no choice but to walk straight into it. Shambles can't even pop Primal to try to touch that point, because the second that they do, they give away the bubble, and the overclock is just going to rip through the team. The jump comes down from Shambles, but it's onto the high ground that Summit are occupying rather than tapping onto the point. And just like that, it is going to be Altiora walking away with the first part of Busan.
Wow. I mean, dominant performance from them thus far. The swaps, I don't know, Moxie, if you agree with me. What do you think? Like, it just seemed like the Mercy instead of the Lucio. It's a bit troublesome if you're going to play Reaper, right?
It's really hard. Like, I know why you went for the Mercy. You're giving up that Sojourn. So you're giving away that potential trade of the early pick, which means you want the Mercy for the res in case Prism is able to find that. But like you pointed out, you don't have that speed boost, and Lucio is one of the best supports in the game at the moment. And you're headed into Mecha Base, a map which is revered for choke control, and you're still foregoing the Lucio. So if you get stuck in these chokes, it's going to be so hard for Lanterns to actually maneuver their way onto point.
Well, they're trying to play maybe a composition that is focused around their strengths because they're going to play that Junkrat with the Mercy this time, but at the same time, Altiora is well aware, and they're trying to build up that railgun shot to maybe look for a backline at the same time. But alternate lanterns, they already have to continually back up because there's Reaper pressure on the other side. So now Snorty comes around the front side, and they're already low, down in heals already, forced to use the nade for complete sustain, and it might just not be enough because Prism rips off the head of T, and now alternate lanterns, they go to trade back. They get the resurrect after the Orisa goes forward with a little bit of pressure on the front line, and that might just be enough because the internet lands onto Snorty, lands onto Starfy as well, and now Prism's forced to fall back. Does hit the railgun shot onto the body of the Mercy, but it's not enough for a headshot. And at the same time, Feywild Fox falls back because they didn't get headshot, and allows him to push forward another point. Even though Summit got the cap first, alternate lanterns, they're steadily in control now.
Yeah, this is where they want to be as well. They have that choke control. This is where that Junkrat really comes into play alongside the Mei as well. The problem is Summit are already past the choke. With that Lucio, they've been able to circumvent the win condition for Lanterns. The stall is gone, and now it's the frontline fight.
Yeah, at the same time, the Valkyrie in towards the side of alternate lanterns, but the Nano Boost is available. Who are they going to use it on? Is it going to be the Mei? The sustain's already here from that Valkyrie, and it allows Syrah to get the first pick on the Nubsky. So now that they're down, no Lucio in this fight, no beat drop will be popped. Snorty just try to find a backline trade, in which he does, and Faye got taken out by Starfy as well, so no resurrect available. And now towards the point goes Altiora Summit and alternate lanterns. They don't want to pop ultimates here because they're missing people, but no, they do pop the Nano Boost. They pop it onto the Mei. They're zoned out on the point because of shambles, but Starfy finds the Ana. Sirena does take Prism out at the same time, and they are on that point, but Starfy and K-Pop Stan close out on this point to allow the switch to eventually happen, but T comes back with a concussion mine to the face of Nubsky, which is a little funny. I mean, Junkrat could do that, but the Riptide coming next fight, Altiora should be fine with just that Primal Rage to cap out that point.
Yeah, I don't know how much of a fan I am of Lanterns throwing in free ultimates to stall out percentage. I know Choke is extremely hard to be able to break through for them. They have that Junkrat tire. The problem is that Summit have a lot of survivability, even if it's able to hit onto one of those players. Worse, K-Pop might just be able to hit that Suzu as we see the rush come on through. Serena unfortunately not able to use the wall to stop its path as Snorty goes in for that backline dive. No kills coming on off the Mei wall was decent, and it has unfortunately been able to keep the rest of the team alive, but Princeton had been separated away from his team. Snorty with the kite is able to find the Ana and force the resurrection out from Lanterns, and they're still sold up in choke. Some are just about to equalize point percentage. T is forced to use that tire just to keep them hostage, so that they can't actually try and prevent Lanterns from walking below and onto point.
Starfy got slept in the meanwhile. Prism does take Serena down. So now Prism's popping that overclock onto the front line, just looking for backline damage. Gets Prince Mew. The resurrect can't be used either. K-Pop Stan takes down Faye Wild. Now Shambles and T are the only ones left in the point with no sustain. They do have a lot of bursts, but it's not enough to sustain through Altiora's damage.
Summit able to just keep that sustainability at the moment. K-Pop Stan does actually walk into the Junkrat trap, but there is no follow through. So the Kiriko will be able to survive. As Summit about to hit towards that 90%. Lanterns without an ultimate, barring that Valkyrie, going to have to try and use it to keep everyone alive and just throw themselves onto point. The Orisa Javelin to try and make sure that Summit aren't able to find a pick as they move through from choke. The Valk to be able to touch point. Lanterns have been able to hit in towards overtime if they're able to keep themselves in, but there's the Sojourn, the burst damage absolutely ripping through the team. And it's just the Mercy heals. Even with a Valkyrie, you're not going to be able to chain link everyone up in the face of a Death Blossom.
No way. Altiora Summit easily take map number one. Not just yet. Prince Mew comes back, thinks they have something to say about it, but Altiora Summit with a pretty clean map number one. However, it was a bit of a fight in round number 2 for alternate lanterns, but Altiora Summit are going to take Busan, giving the one map advantage coming into map number 2.
Yeah, I think my main concern isn't just what we saw on control point, it's the composition that is going to be available for alternate lanterns. Just because if you're not able to play that Lucio, the Reaper, the Sojourn, there's a reason that it's so hard meta. There is a reason that when we saw the Overwatch League teams running on this patch, we only really saw a sort of variety in terms of Roadhog coming through to replace the Winston. It is so good all across the board at bringing to the table kill potential, survivability, and sustain stall potential on those points because the Sojourn has so much mobility, the Reaper with the Ray Form and the self-heal off of the shotgun damage that you do, the Winston with the mobility that you have in Primal Rage to be able to keep bolstering up your health bar. There's a reason that it is just the most run composition out there for the pros. And if you can't run into it, you really do have to rely on burst damage from something like the Junkrat, which unfortunately didn't pan out.
Not enough. Snorty played that so well. She was amazing on the Winston. But guys, we will be going to a short break. When we come back, we'll be going into map number 2. So you're not going to miss it. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup number 2, and we are back coming mid-series between Altiora Summit versus Alternate Lanterns. And thus far in map number 1, Altiora Summit were heavily in the advantage for most of the map. Round number 1, 100-0. Round number 2 was 100 to, I believe, 55. So now coming into map number 2, Moxie, what can we expect maybe out of Alternate Lanterns to potentially come back in this series?
I think for Lanterns, it's going to be basically figuring out whether or not they can run these meta picks, and if not, they're going to have to find a different win condition. My heart honestly goes out to the support lineup for Alternate Lanterns, because we saw just this massive shift halfway through Mecha Base, where Snorty on that Winston just figures out, wait a minute, they can't really peel for an Ana. So I'm just going to jump into that backline. I'm going to drop my bubble. I'm going to zap the Ana down. Even if I'm not able to kill them, I'm still going to be able to keep them occupied. And so just by going into that backline and keeping that Ana occupied, everyone else on Lanterns is relying on mercy heals as they're trying to make it through choke. And you're not running the Lucio, you're running an Orisa as well, and trying to run an Orisa through choke, even with the additional speed that Javelin Spin allows for you, is still like trying to lug up the heaviest suitcase of the longest longest flight of stairs. It's so hard to be able to pull off while you're just a Mercy and you've got the beam and you're like, wait a minute, guys, my heals can only do so much for so long. And in the face of the burst damage from Sojourn with that railgun charged up, it's really hard to be able to make sure that the entire team survives. And that is unfortunately what Lanterns had to deal with.
Yeah, and what does Prince Mew do, right? I mean, they have Snorty just running all over the backline, like you mentioned. It's just so hard to deal with it. I mean, they've been so good. She's been amazing on Winston, that's constantly putting pressure on that Ana, forcing Sleep Dart out, forcing the Ana to come the Mercy to come heal the Ana, and then you're zapping both supports, right? It's that pressure that Snorty's been providing to actually allow the rest of their team to push forward onto alternate Lanterns and not provide that space. And I liked how you mentioned, Moxie, how the team needs to find maybe some sort of meta or composition that is off meta that maybe suits their playstyle. T, obviously, in maybe swapping over to that Junkrat to maybe allow that spam to actually come through. But after the nerfs, Moxie, I'm not sure if you even want to play Junkrat, even with the, I guess there were slight nerfs with the Junkrat trap, activation time, but I'm not sure if that's the composition they're looking for.
Yeah, I think for Lanterns, they either need to commit to the Kiriko or they go for something like this Baptiste. I'm a big fan of if you find yourself being dived, like now you can't swap towards the Brigida because you don't have the shield bashed on to try and survive. Just make sure that you have the lamp that you can actually stick with your team rather than being isolated and zoned out by the Winston. As it's not a Winston that they're going to have to deal with this time around. Dustin, you get your wish.
Ooh.
We're heading over to King's Row and Snorty is off the monkey. She's still going to be playing a different animal though. She's playing the pig.
Is he a pig? Is he a pig, or is he a man in a pig suit? You know, I mean, it's up for debate. I guess he has a couple pig skins, but unfortunately this one, Snorty, not running for that skin, unfortunately, but they're hiding in the hotel, Moxie. No way they do this. Alternate Lanterns are not expecting it. They come through. Snorty gets the hook, but the internet comes through, and it lands onto 4 of them, Moxie here. Starfy had to back up, use the shift, and now they're forced to back up, so Alternate Lanterns, actually pretty good scouting from them.
Yeah, Lanterns were expecting it, actually. You can see Shambles going for the spy check. They don't see anyone in choke, and they immediately, that's the warning signal start to come through. So the Diva looks up. The anti-nade is gorgeous onto Snorty. The one thing that counters the Roadhog is, of course, that Ana anti-nade. And for Prince Mew, if you land it onto the Roadhog, even if it's immediately used by the Suzu to get cleansed, it's still a good utility kit. Unfortunately, though, the Sojourn damage is just better. Immediately, the Widowmaker is just sniped out of the Purge. And it's immediately actually going to force the swap off the Widowmaker back onto that Junkrat for the burst damage to try and keep pace with Prism.
And Serena's going to be on that Junkrat. Yeah, unfortunately, that Widow matchup is very hard to actually deal with the Sojourn when she's fully charged up that railgun. But in the meantime, Starfy forced to use the Reaper shift to get back to their team. And at the same time, this fight has become a bit neutral game for Altiora, as Alternate Lanterns looks like they're going for more of a flank position over the top set of Clock Tower, but everything is in shambles for Shambles as they get hooked away. But nice nade from Prince Mew to keep their team alive. Building that Nano Boost, it should be the first thing on the field, but if Snorty builds up that Roadhog ultimate, Moxie, it's going to be dangerous for Alternate Lanterns, but Snorty doesn't even need that. So they got Serena on the other side. Starfy finds Wild Blocks. The Sleep Dart Kid come through from Prince Mew, but it's not enough on Ana with Snorty's running into your back line. 3K for them so far. Make it a 4K on the Shambles. Roadhog ult to close out on the things for Altiora Summit.
Alternate Lanterns will at least have the Diva Bomb to try to push in with. The problem is that Altiora Summit are going to have a lot of cover, a lot of corners to be able to break line of sight to hide from it, as well as that Suzu. And if Lanterns try to break through this choke, K-Pop Stan is holding on to this rush with the advanced cooldowns and the Death Blossom to pair it up with, which is going to be devastating. It's going to come down to Prince Mew and the Sleep Dart to be able to shut that one down fast.
Yeah, that Sleep Dart, like you mentioned, it's going to be crucial. The Nano Boost comes out, though, on the other side. Sleep Dart, I believe, missed there, but the Kitsune Rush pop allows Prism to get Prince Mew. So now that that's out of the equation, Alternate Lanterns, they might want to commit ultimates, but no, they want to save for next fight. 1 minute and 30 left. Just building ultimates. Prince Mew's can actually swap to Zenyatta, thinking the Discord is going to help them here, but Altiora, so smart, only use the Kitsune Rush deck.
Altiora holding on to a lot of ults. Alternate Lanterns will have that Kitsune Rush to try to break through from choke and set T up to come in with that Death Blossom, but Noobski is gonna have that sound barrier, and if the Lucio is able to connect with the ground before the Death Blossom comes through, the survivability is gonna be there for Summit. As Lanterns, they were able to spy check the first attack coming through from Summit. Now they're going to have to watch the backs the second time. Flanking Death Blossom's coming through. It's going to connect right into the back of the rush. It doesn't find the picks, but it's still chunking them low.
Suzu was there, but Faye unfortunately got tracked down by Starfy. Now the tire comes through to try to equalize things. Gets Starfy, but Nubsky on the other side found Shambles. And oh, great hook from Snorty. Forces the Reaper ship to fall back, but a Zenyatta on the choke point. It's not going to be enough versus the entirety of Altiora on that front line, but actually it sustains. 30 seconds left. Now there's that overclock for Altiora Summit. Alternate Lanterns, they're going to have that Death Blossom, but with no speed boost. How does it find value here, Moxie?
That is the question. As you can see, Summit actually just starting to split up into pockets. The Junkrat gonna have control of this high ground to make sure that they don't get caught out by the Death Blossom when it comes through. Prism fully ramped up with the overclock. That's one, that's two. Lanterns' hopes fading around them as the Sojourn just bursts through the entire team before T can even pop out.
Wow. Just absolute dismantling of alternate lanterns. They were turned back into the original parts, which are, I guess, glass, some metal maybe. Unfortunately for them on defense, they're going to have to change things up and potentially run a different composition. But at the same time, I mean, they tried to do everything there, but it seemed like Altiora was just ready for pretty much every maneuver that alternate lanterns were trying to do.
Yeah, I tell you one play that Altiora were ready for, and that is Starfy coming in with the Death Blossom to deny Lanterns using that rush to be able to break through from choking onto point. Because even though the Death Blossom doesn't find the kills that it's looking for when you're in the ult form, it actually pushes Lanterns away from using the rush, away from having those increased cooldowns and that speed boost. And it means that Rush runs out and Lanterns still haven't had control of the fight. Worse, they are now fragmented onto the sidelines of the point, and that's when Summit just comes in with the cleanup crew, because they have the burst damage, the Sojourn, the Roadhog. All they need to do is look in a direction of the Lanterns players and just puff a breeze of air towards them to be able to knock one down. As we are now going to see Lantern swapping over onto the defense. Once again, Shabbles coming out onto that Orisa. Serena going to be picking up the Mei. This is something that we've seen work in the past. You use the wall, cut off a player as they move through from choke. Summit, however, can once again counter that by running the Lucio to be able to use that speed boost and make sure that the entire team moves as one together so that no one gets isolated out by the Mei.
Yeah, and that's hopefully what Altiora are going to try to do. But on the other side, yeah, that Mei is good to see again, right? I mean, it's fun to see Mei back in the hero pool potentially for alternate lanterns, or to allow them and maybe you get a win, maybe get that wall off even with that speed boost for Altiora. But they go for the flank, and Snorty's onto that Doomfist now. Like you mentioned before, Mox, it's interesting to see if it finds value. They're going for the flank on the top side, and it allows Prism to find the shot onto Faye, who had to drop off that high ground and now down one. I'm not sure how alternate lanterns are going to do this. Snorty finds Prince Mew. Nobody left now. It's just Serena and on T on this point, but they're walled off by their own Mei. Hanzo goes and double jumps back into the point, but Altiora Summit close it out with a pretty interesting composition to give them the 2-0 win in this Swiss format.
Yeah, Summit actually just running that Doomfist to create disruption, dive into the backline, occupy the Lantern players, allowing one of them to just walk onto point and pick up the percentage necessary to find the map win. They know exactly what they need to do. They're not playing for a fight when they are literally just playing distraction tactics so that they can pick up that percentage. And unfortunately for alternate lanterns, it really was just not being able to break into a very versatile hero pool that slowed them down. We see the Mei attempt coming on through, but because the Lucio is in play, they're not able to use that wall to try and separate that team and control the first part of the choke, and as a result, they're really playing reactive. They give up the high ground too, allowing Summit far too much control of the situation. The fact that we see the Widowmaker actually continue forward rather than swapping off to something like the Sojourn once the attempt at that spawn camp runs out goes to show just how much control Summit had in the entirety of that series.
Yeah, they're proving why they are an Altiora team. I mean, we know that they are a franchise that is to be reckoned with. I mean, both teams, like you mentioned, qualifying in the last qualifiers, or at least two teams out of the Altiora group to actually qualify is a huge deal. Now Summit proving why they are deserved of being a part of this franchise, like you mentioned. But guys, we'll be going to a short break. When we come back, we'll have more content for you guys, so you're not going to miss it. We'll be right back. welcome back to the Calling All Heroes qualifier number 2, and we have with us a winner from this match from the actual team of Altiora Summit. We have Snorty with us. Congratulations on the win. You played amazing on pretty much every tank that there is to play.
Oh, that's really nice of you. Thank you. I didn't know what was happening, to be honest. I just played my best.
You couldn't tell. You did an amazing job. On Winston especially, on Mega Base, isolating that Ana was just chef's kiss. But speaking of all of the tank heroes that we actually got to see you cycle through, how does it feel as a tank player having to move over from something like the Zarya focus on qualifiers number 1 to having to pick between Winston and Roadhog in qualifiers number 2?
I couldn't welcome the change more. I mean, I like Zarya, don't get me wrong. I play all the tanks, but I mean, Winston is probably my second favorite tank. My first one is Doomfist, to be honest. So I fully welcome that change. And let me tell you, when Doomfist becomes not even meta per se, just viable, I'm hitting those teams, you know.
Well, yeah, Doomfist is a pretty hard character to play against. Even now, honestly, have you played a lot of Doomfist in like ranked potentially to potentially practice for if Doomfist ever does become meta?
Yes, I've actually been like, I actually have this whole like Doomfist training regimen right now. I feel so embarrassed saying this, I'm gonna be honest. But like I've been like, so I've been trying to do mouse sensitivity, and I've been basically trying to work on the hit scan part of the hero, you know, because the abilities is one thing, but like if you hit those headshots, Doomfist is like a fatal source of damage. So that's the current angle I'm looking at right now. But yeah, I have like a stupid amount of hours on Doomfist to answer your question. Like I fell in love with that character as soon as it launched, and then a lot of people disagree with me, but I really like the tank rework. So yeah, I've been hitting Doomfist really hard.
So a lot of the time, we actually have tank players being sort of the ones that call the shots and give communications to the team on when to push in and what they think is about to happen. Are you the IGL for the team, and are you calling out what you think is going to happen and when the team needs to push, or is it someone else's role on the team?
I'm doing a lot of the calling, but I don't know if I would say I'm like the main person. I did make like a lot of like calls for like plays and stuff, but it was never like like anyone can call the position really, and as soon as I hear that position call, I usually listen to them and we go that way, you know. So
yeah,
kind of.
Like oh yeah, keep going. Yeah, so it's like a team kind of effort, pretty much.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, and yeah,
sorry.
I mean, you guys. Oh no, you're good. I mean, you guys played that amazing.
Sorry,
so
I
in
have
that
like
series,
communication issues, but like
oh
yeah, I was like mostly calling like where I wanted the team to position and like the openings I was like looking for before, because like something we practice a lot is calling for the plays before we actually do them, and that's something we had to like go our way to practice because it was a bit of our like problem points for a while, but we're doing really good at it today, and I'm proud of my team for it.
yeah, it looks so smooth. Well, congratulations again, Snorty. Thank you for coming in for an interview. Congratulations on the win, 2-0 for you guys. Pretty clean win. So hope to see you again in the Swiss rounds later on. So congratulations once again.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Snorty from Altiora Summit, and what a win for them, Moxie, over Lanterns, Alternate Lanterns, which are a good team, and somehow they just really dominated and blew the waters out of Altiora Summit. I mean, Altiora, sorry, Alternate
really
Lanterns.
good. Really good adaptation coming through from Summit to be able to get to grips with the new meta as quick as possible. And I think it really is going to be the storyline for the entirety of these qualifiers, whichever team has been able to adapt into this new meta and be able to flex between the two different heroes of tanks that are really viable, as well as being able to swap up the DPS lineup but still keep the Lucio and the Kiriko in play, are really going to go far in these qualifiers. It is going to separate a lot of these teams from those positions at the top of the leaderboard.
Oh, yeah. And I think that we are going to see a lot of that separation eventually come out as the weekend goes on. But guys, we'll be going to a short break. When we come back, we'll have some more Calling All Heroes Challengers Cup content, and you're not going to miss it. We'll be back in just a bit. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup number 2. And we are coming into the series in the second one, Moxie. This is a team you were looking forward to. We got number 1 on Overbuff and Dart Monkeys going head to head in this next matchup in this first of two. First of two.
It's not quite my dream matchup of Dart Monkeys going up against Vancouver Titans Blue, but do you know what? I'm just so happy that we get to see Dart Monkeys in action. This is a team that when they announced their roster, it created waves. Everyone was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be a dream team coming on through. We've got streamers, we've got contenders players. It's going to be a very stacked roster coming through for Dart Monkeys. Number 1 on Overbuff, though, having a pretty good roster themselves. A couple of those players having participated and coming third in the Overwatch Empowerment Cup way back in February. So I think we're going to be getting a pretty good matchup.
Oh, yeah, I think so as well. I mean, both teams really, it depends on what compositions they're going to run. I mean, with number 1 on Overbuff, are they going to run that Winston composition, or is Dart Monkeys going to run that Winston composition with that Reaper, with that Lucio, with the Rico? You know, what are we going to see Aspen on? It really, all of these things matter on what the teams have decided, because coming into qualifier number 2, you know, we have a bit of a mixed bag, right? Everybody qualifiers 1, you know, it happened, top 4 teams placed. Now you got to kind of reshuffle, figure things out leading into the second qualifiers, in which they have, right? Number 1 on Overbuff, obviously one of the more recognizable team names I think we've seen in contenders, and I think people like to just use that team in general. And their team really is looking forward to playing this matchup, right? Because they have a lot of good aimers. We've seen Cool Guy before, we've seen Soap, we've seen Prisma before. And with this team specifically, I mean, I could see them doing well against pretty much every team, let alone Dart Monkeys coming up in this first of 2.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a real test for this team, right? Dart Monkeys are one of those teams that when you look at the roster that you have, you kind of go, oh, okay, play the boss music. And so it is going to be a very good test to see whether or not number 1 on Overbuff can find their footing in Calling All Heroes, because they've had decent performances in the past, not brilliant standout performances. I think this is where we get to see the adaptation coming from this team, whether or not they have been able to adapt into that new meta, and whether or not they're ready to take the next step forward and try to make it into one of those top 4 positions, because they definitely have the chops to be able to do it. The problem is they have to try and make it past Dart Monkeys, a team that when we look at this roster, yeah, it's pretty recognizable. Moving Fish, the tank player for Redbirds NA, Barcode Zemret, Aspen previously on Pirates in Pajamas, SK, this is going to be a gargantuan matchup, a very large mountain for number 1 to climb if they want to be able to live up to that namesake.
Yeah, Dart Monkeys, obviously the content farming team, as we would call them, right? They're in here, and hopefully for them, they do well. I mean, I'm sure they would like to, but generally, I'm sure they just want to do well and have fun, honestly, because that's really what it's all about, right? When you come in the Challengers Cup, you know, it depends. Things can change. You know, you can go up or you can go down, and obviously winning solves everything. But as a team, as a unit, the number 1 focus should always be when you play a competitive video game. When you play any video game, at least mine these days, maybe I've turned a bit more of a casual, is to just have fun, right? Coming into this matchup, I'm sure we'll see SK on Lucio probably playing like a, I don't know, Flanko Lucio or something like that. I mean, hell, I've seen SK playing ranked. They've played against SK recently, and she keeps playing, you know, I think Bastion, when I see him with Seagull and with Emong and them, they're just playing everything in the sky under the blue moon. So really, at the end of the day, I'm sure that they're just going to have fun with whatever they're playing. If you want to play aggressive Reddit Lucio style in Overwatch 2, does it really work, Moxie? Do you think the aggressive Lucio style works? So on a map like Ilios, probably would.
I mean, is there really any other way to play Lucio at the moment other than aggressive? This is the thing. Support heroes have basically had to go, okay, we can't just be only heals. We have to really hit the damage numbers too, because unfortunately, if you do just play for support, like, you're not gonna be able to have the ult charge necessary to come into those fights. Silent Barrier is so instrumental in being able to sustain through some of these matchups, and you really need your Lucio to be constantly outputting the damage and also diving in. And the first meta that we saw, it was the Lucio wanting to dive with the Genji. Now it's much more of a matter of that Lucio providing the space for the Winston to be able to freely get into that backline and freely escape as well. Because when a Winston goes up against a Sojourn, and that bubble has 200 health less than it did in Overwatch 1 as well, that bubble breaks extremely quickly, and the Winston's health bar breaks alongside it.
Oh yeah, and it's just absolute destruction at that point. And on top of that, the supports aren't even killable. Like Lucio is one of the more unkillable supports in the game. The fact that they just ride all over you, and then on top of that, you try to shoot them. They have, like you mentioned, that self-sustain, that heal on top of the heals they already possess. It makes it incredibly hard to take that hero down unless you have some sort of sunlock, in which usually you don't, or the sticky grenade on like Cassidy or something. But I mean, we see Barcode play the Cassidy, right? We see, I mean, Barcode has a very good Cassidy, has a very good Soldier, a lot of the really good hit scan characters. So we can see if they have adapted more towards that Sojourn. And coming into Ilios, I mean, this is a map where Sojourn kind of reigns supreme besides maybe on Ruins, right?
Yeah, Sojourn, I think, just reigns supreme on every single map. At the moment, let's be honest. Just the amount of damage that she's able to put up, the fact that we saw in that previous matchup, because they weren't able to play the Sojourn, Alternate Lanterns had to actually go for a Mercy damage boosted Junkrat to try to match the numbers that Prism was outputting before the fights properly started to spiral into action. She is exceptionally strong. The one weakness that Sojourn perhaps has is that she isn't really a traditional hit scan. So if you want to commit to something like the Far, it is a little bit harder for the Sojourn to be able to snipe her out of the sky.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, if you play that Pharah, it could be something that's viable, especially against Dart Monkeys if they actually lock that Cementia. But more than likely, Zemret is just going to teleport Dart Monkeys out of the spawn. Number one of Overbuff, not even concerning themselves with that same mindset as Zafrona, actually going to lock that Mercy. And Prismatine actually going to swap over to the Kariko after Lucio spinning out of spawn. And now they're going to run that Diva with that Pharah. Even after the Diva nerfs Moxie, they're going to run it instead of that Winston. Aspen, what?
There's a reason that she was on Pip. Aspen's aim is pretty godlike. And Dart Monkeys already with a very early pick look to be able to secure this first percentage. Number one on Overbuff, unfortunately, because they're running that far, having to commit to the Mercy pocket, which means that they have to forego the Lucio for the Kiriko with the burst healing to try and keep the rest of the team up. And as a result, Dart Monkeys are having a lot of control. However, they lose the tank. Moving Fish does unfortunately go down by trying to dive their way into that backline. And it does mean that number one on Overbuff might be able to turn this fight around pretty quickly. The problem is the Far is fighting in an enclosed space where there's a ceiling. Zemret not able to find the kill. Cool Guy escaping with a sliver of her health bar is able to reposition.
Well, they're still alive as well, but no, there goes the railgun shot into the sky after the shift. Saffrona could go there for the resurrect, but wait, Turing somehow slammed Aspen with a remech, so that held perfect timing for them. Moving Fish taking a lot of damage here on the front line, but Zemret comes in to support their Winston to fall back. Now Cool Guy has to come back with that barrage after a resurrect couldn't come through. Now the Valkyrie also available. Dart Monkeys, they don't have any ultimates here, Mox. They're gonna have to build coming into this Valkyrie, but here's the barrage, doesn't find any value. Moving Fish goes low, however, no fall through damage onto them. They heal up back to full HP due to Aspen's heals. In the meantime, on the front line, Zemret forced to use shift, gets chased down by Cool Guy and Turing. At the same time, Soap drops the pulse bomb, forces Moving Fish to jump into the air, build that Primal Rage, in which they do on the other side, which has the point still in control, as Primatine does pop that Kitsune Rush onto the other side. Cool Guy takes down the Sojourn of Barcode as well as they drop into the pit to avoid damage. Cool Guy still pumping with that Kitsune Rush into the back line. It's just so much damage. The Suzu has to be used onto SK to keep them alive. Aspen popped their own Kitsune Rush late, and now Zemret, they have that ultimate, they have that Reaper ultimate. Moving Fish booping them away. SK actually gets the boop on a Turing off of the map where it actually kills them, and Cool Guy actually gets SK as one, trades it back, but Moving Fish in with Sojourn Barcode, they clean up things, and the point was never flipped for number one on Overbuff.
That's the problem. Even though number one on Overbuff hit the ults first, even though they find straggles of picks here and there, the sustainability and stall for the entirety of Dart Monkeys alone allows themselves to just keep themselves on that point for so long. Sojourn does get taken out, Barco going to be removed from the fight. No burst damage, unfortunately. Number one on Overbuff have to bypass a Death Blossom, and it forces the barrage as we hit towards overtime. Diva Bomb still going to be in play. Moving Fish taken down. No bubble going to be there to save the team. But number one and Overbuff have to win every single one of these next fights, and as a result have to hold on to this ultimate. They are going to be relying both on Turing on this Diva and Soap on the Tracer to find an early pick to secure delay tactics long enough for the point percentage to start to look a little healthier.
20% only on the board for them. They have to build up. There you go. There's Soap to find moving fish early on. Drops pulse bomb to zone. No resurrect available because they're not running Mercy. Only number one on Overbuff is another side. Turing has that Diva Bomb. I'm going to hold it till they actually need it most. Cool Guy finds Zemra, and this is what you talked about, Moxie. That Pharah can really do a lot of work against this Sojourn, where she kind of needs those railgun shots to do anything to deal with this Pharah.
And as well as that, the fact that number one and Overbuff have the sky control when these fights begin means that Cool Guy doesn't have to worry about being sniped out by a Sojourn who already has that railgun charged up and is looking for the snipe to land onto the Pharah, which is a massive advantage. However, Dark Monkey's coming in with the overclock, immediately gonna pop it. Sophrona popping out that Valkyrie to try and keep everyone alive. Turing with the Diva actually going for the get down President play and blocking the Sojourn shots, as overclock, because of the kite, finds nothing.
Barrage perfectly placed as well from Cool Guy to not kill themselves there. It's a huge deal. The Sojourn has to fall back to the health pack now, but without their team has to reset. And Moxie, this is a very close one. 73% of the board now. Number one of Overbuff have really turned it around.
Yeah, honestly, Turing coming in of the absolute hero clutch play, blocking out Barcode with that overclock is absolutely massive. She secures her entirety of her team to be able to survive. As now we're heading towards another overtime. Prismatine holding on to this Kitsune rush, but Dark Monkeys are going to have the rush and the Soundbar to layer on top of it. So they take a little bit of a longer rotation, but Winston going to be able to get the touch on to make sure that they have that point percentage. As Barcode has actually swapped onto the Cassie to deal with the fire. There's the traditional hit scan, and immediately Cool Guy's wings are clipped.
Yeah, and that's amazing shots from Barcode, and also in that Kitsune rush just pumps out tons of damage. Last second, it looks like they closed down things. Number one on Overbuff, they used all their ultimates in the previous fights, and unfortunately too far of a deficit to come back from, but a close one at that. Number one on Overbuff should feel proud about leaving it that close coming into the next round. I'm sure they can be confident that they can actually, if they cap the point first, hold the entire time.
Yeah, honestly, the fact that they forced Barcode onto the Cassidy speaks volumes to what the Pharah is doing. And I just worry that Barcode is going to stay on the Cassidy, and as a result, the Pharmacy is not going to be finding the same value. The good news for them is that it's Ruins that we head to next. So it is going to be number one on Overbuff, giving away that Pharmacy to go for the hard meta. Reaper, Sojourn, Kiriko, Lucio. As Dark Monkeys, anticipating a Pharmacy, may actually lock in this Cassidy to be able to use the hit scan and deal with Sky Control. But no, it is going to be swapped to that Sojourn. Summerite going for the Symmetra just to give a little bit of speed boost for Dark Monkey to be able to tap that point first.
Right. Well, now they come back into a mere fight this time. Number one on Overbuff actually on the other side. They're actually going to group up as a unit, and at the same time, Barcode's getting a lot of charge, looking for that railgun shot on the squish in the back line. Unfortunately, won't hit it, but they're going to keep building up that railgun shot now. Avoids the headshot as well on the other side. Has to get healed up by Aspid, and Zemrat is the first one to find Turing on the other side. Forced to use shift is Zemrat, but they're all nice and healthy, and Zemrat and Aspid take Soap out as well. Number one on Overbuff, dismantled by Dart Monkeys as they reset first fight.
This is the advantage with a Symmetra teleport when one team uses it and the other team doesn't. Positioning for Dart Monkeys. Barcode is able to immediately occupy themselves onto high ground, so that when the fight starts to spiral through, number one and Overbuff are having to drop things like the Winston Bubble and the Kiriko Suzu a lot earlier than Dart Monkeys are, and as a result, because those abilities thrown out, they start losing players once they don't have them available. As Moving Fish goes too deep, will not be able to get bailed out by the rest of their team, and this should be number one on Overbuff starting to move forward. Barcode run over, a flip potentially coming through very quickly.
Unfortunately, this has been a problem for Moving Fish. They just take too much damage. Dart Monkeys have to reset now with only 30% of the board. It's a little bit different than the last map on Well, where they got all the way to 99 before they were actually contested, and number one on Overbuff actually flipped the point at 35%.
That's sort of the advantage with teams when you're all clumped up and coming out of spawn together. When the Winston dives in, everyone is bunched up to be able to just absolutely blitz the health bar down. There's a very early rush coming through from number one and Overbuff, trying to make sure that they're able to push onto Dart Monkeys as they respawn, not allowing them time to be able to try and push in with this overclock and get that flip. Number one and Overbuff after this Kitsune era should be able to equalize point percentage, but Dart Monkeys answering back with a rush of their own once Prismatines runs out.
Yeah, the beat drop committed. Does it save Cool Guy? Yes, it does. Perfectly placed from Sofrona to cancel out Moving Fish's Primal Rage. Now they have to back up, though. They actually built it last moment, but now Barcode, they got the overclock. Looking for a squishy in the backline. Has to find their counterpart in Cool Guy, but Cool Guy's actually zoned off by Moving Fish, but Moving Fish taking down low, and Turing is the one to find the fall-through damage, but Cool Guy is taken out by the Disruptor shot of Barcode. Meanwhile, Reaper comes out from Zemrit. Do they live? Yes, they do at 1 HP, but at the same time, they're getting healed up, forcing a lot of resources to be pumped into them. The Primal Rage from Turing just to delay the point. Is it enough to deal with this Reaper? It might not be, because SK finds Prism. SK also finds Sofrona as Zemrit chases down Turing. They'll flip the point once again at 63% for Overbuff. Now Dart Monkeys are in control.
Yeah, but Dart Monkeys, look at the ult economy. They had to throw everything of their resources into that fight, Dustin, and as a result, number one and Overbuff are coming in with a Kitsune rush, and Dart Monkeys have nothing. They don't have a rush to try and counter it with, they don't have a sandbag to try and sustain through it, and they really don't want to afford that point flip because they're going to get stuck and choke.
Yeah, the rush available here. It's usually been fight winning. Now Prismatine has to drop it early. They already go into the point, and like you mentioned, that deficit is too much for Dart Monkeys. They're just going to keep backing up. Use that Suzu, perfectly timed for Aspen. But do they have the sustain after that? Now the shot is available for Barcode. Looking for a backline. Can't find it. Cool Guy's the one to find the Lucio. And that should open things with no ultimates here. Sofrona does find Moving Fish. The damage output is there from Dart Monkeys. But unfortunately, they're still going to have to go with the point. And number one Overbuff actually swap it, even though Barcode finds Soap.
Dart Monkeys actually played that probably as close to perfectly as they could. They keep SK on that point, so number one and Overbuff off of just using the ultimate don't find the flip. And as a result, Dart Monkeys are actually able to stall up to 75%. Aspen's coming in with a rush. They're going to have Death Blossom and Primal Rage to be able to play around with, and because number one and Overbuff weren't able to find the damage they were looking for with that Kiriko ult, they don't have the ultimate economy deficit they were looking for.
No, they just get ran on. Now the Suzu's forced already from number one Overbuff. Turing taken down low. They're going to have to pump resources into them, and Cool Guy's the one to get ran over by Moving Fish as well. They're going to flip the point surely here. It's a matter of how fast can number one on Overbuff reset, Moxie.
Can they even reset? Because Dart Monkeys are holding on to this Death Blossom. The second number one Overbuff tried to group up, they're going to run into Moving Fish, who's going to get a lot of early damage. Barcode as well set up on the high ground. Zemrit going for the teleport into the backline is going to drop down into every single one of the players. The Disruptor shot to make sure that the Reaper isn't able to move forward fast enough to be able to actually hit onto the team has secured number one Overbuff a chance at being able to flip this point.
Yeah, they have that overclock now for Cool Guy. Cool Guy's going to have to go off because Zemrit found Prismatine. Now you're down your main heals, but Soap! Reaper finds SK, finds Aspen, the backline who's been doing so much for Dart Monkeys, and Cool Guy to find the follow-up shots with Turing on the Monkey, on the Winston. They close out on Ruins to tie this series, and we're going to round number 3.
Oh my goodness, the turn around coming through for number one is not expected from Dart Monkeys. They think with that Death Blossom they're going to be able to stall them long enough that no one's going to be able to touch that point. Or that if they do, it's going to be a desperation throw a body onto the point to activate overtime. As a result, off of a gorgeous Disruptor shot coming through from Cool Guy to shut down the Reaper ultimate, they're actually able to get the cheeky flip, and it's Dart Monkeys on the backside having to turn around and throw themselves onto the point in the confusion, and they've already used the ultimates too, so they have no way of being able to swing that fight in their favor. As we head towards the decider, it is going to be a very close series indeed. Lighthouse coming into play. Number one and Overbuff sticking with this mirror matchup, not fielding that far. It worked for them in Ruins, hoping it's going to work again here.
Zemrit a little late behind number one on Overbuff. They've been sticking together. Barcode's been on these flanks to get in that damage on the other side, so you can kind of tell a difference in playstyle from that. But the boop off from SK leads to Barcode getting the headshot onto Sofrona, and now the boop off the map as well from SK is huge. This is one of the maps where these Lucio players are going to do a lot of work, and SK, one of the best we have.
Yeah, there's the aggressive Lucio that we expected to see. SK just luring her way into that backline, providing a little bit of additional pressure, forcing number one on Overbuff off of that high ground, and then towards the environmental hazard, which is where the Lucio is able to come alive and really use the threat of falling off of that cliff to play havoc with number one on Overbuff's positioning, as they just have to speed boost onto point. It's trying to just get that early flip, but unfortunately in the distraction, they lose the Kiriko and the Winston very quickly, so this should just be number one on Overbuff trying to throw themselves off the cliff to avoid giving ultimate charge to Dart Monkeys. That's why we see both Sofrona and Soap going overboard.
Yeah, that's the hard part with sticking as a 5-person unit, because then you're just easily to track down, right? SK can get the boops that they want, and Dart Monkey is doing a great job on the defensive hold. Now move forward to 42%. Moxie, number one Overbuff, all they have is 60% of the Kitsune rush. Dart Monkeys are going to have that overclock coming up soon. They could easily snowball this further. Moving Fish does have that Winston ult, goes into the backline, already dives the number one Overbuff, and they're all 5-man grouped together inside, and they're just being ran down with a disruptor shot. Winston Primal Rage, and that's yet another reset.
This is the real horrific reality for number one Overbuff, as you pointed out, because they're moving together so much as a unit. They're not going on flanks with the Lucio or the Sojourn. They're not setting up all of these off angles, which means that Dart Monkeys get to clear for the entirety of the team. That's why we saw Moving Fish already have that primal and absolutely smash through the entirety of that team as they go into side room. There's the off angle that you want your Sojourn to be on, and this barcode going to power slide into the back line with the ultimate immediately shut down, flew a little bit too close to the sun as Zemerett also goes up into orbit.
Boom! It was huge. Soap found SK at the end of it with the Reaper ult of their own, and they actually found the peel there. Number one Overbuff perfectly timed, like you mentioned. They canceled out Barcode, who came over the top side, and then also booped away. Safrana hit that boop onto the Reaper. Now Cool Guy finds Zemret on the delay as well, and now Moxie, is this a similar thing to Well, where Dart Monkeys were heavily in the lead and number one Overbuff have to make the reverse sweep basically here?
Yeah, well, Dart Monkeys, unfortunately, off of the hubris of thinking they had that fight in the bag, threw in every single ultimate they had. Cool Guy goes extremely low. This is the pressure that the Sojourn is going to come under. The only one with an ultimate in the lobby at the moment. Cool Guy actually going to be able to shut down a push from Dart Monkeys with the overclock, buy themselves a little bit more point percentage as Turing drops the Winston bubble to provide a little bit of cover for Cool Guy to try and find the angles. As Dart Monkeys try and hide it out, but Zemret still gets found out.
Both of these Sojourns have been hitting quite a bit of shots, Moxie. Now they're going to actually have to fall back. Dart Monkeys play it slow on the incoming fight because they only have Primal Rage. It's the only ultimate on the field. Moving Fish is going to have to go huge with that Primal Rage, in which they have been before. Now they move towards that point. Primal Rage popped. And how many kills they can they find here? Is even the Sojourn? No! It's a Reaper shooting them, and Cool Guy's actually the one to find Zemret, even though they were being Primal Raged by Moving Fish. Moving Fish has to back out 1 HP, uses a lot of resources, and Moxie, they still want to fight this. They still want to win this fight, but Safrona, they have that beat drop here. Dart Monkeys, they can play still on the outside because number one Overbuff, they just want this fight on the point.
Dart Monkeys can afford, though. The point percentage that they're sitting on, they can afford to just sit and wait for these ultimates to come online, but they want to take the flip immediately. The Kitsune Rush coming out from Aspen, forcing Dart Monkeys onto that point. Barcode with the overclock trying to sideline everyone from number one on Overbuff so that they're low enough for Zemret to be able to chunk and cleave down. And Barcode's able to find Turing with that railgun. Number one on Overbuff still controlling this point, but the Reaper goes extremely low. Moving Fish is able to find the follow-up damage to be able to chunk Soap down, and this should be Dart Monkeys with the flip. 3% left for them. Number one on Overbuff might just be able to get Turing to be able to touch, but no, the Winston is not going to be able to tap in time. Dart Monkeys take the map, but my goodness, what a start to this series. I hope every single one of these maps that these teams face off on is as explosive as we got to see just now.
Oh, and it should be. I mean, we come to Hybrid next. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how Dart Monkeys win there because as a unit, they are good at moving together. But as you saw, Moxie, I mean, just in that last point onto Lighthouse, they just wouldn't leave the point, unfortunately. Turing tried to leave the point, as you saw, but nobody was there with the follow-up. They were just too, maybe slow behind. They couldn't find the actual engagement. They didn't want to actually follow through on the Turing's engagement because they just wanted to play on the point really hard. But guys, we'll be going to a short break. When we come back, Moxie, like you mentioned, on a hybrid map, this could go either way, so you're not going to miss it. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challengers Cup number 2 and the qualifier we are in. In this series, Moxie, it's been exciting. The matchup between Dart Monkeys and number 1 on Overbuff has been everything that we expected it to be. You know, we still had to decide through the matchmakers what we were going to see, but this series hasn't let us down. It's been a crazy series back and forth, at least on Ilios. Now, leading to the next map, Moxie, on Hybrid. First of all, what do you think they're going to pick? Second of all, how do you think that Dart Monkeys adjusts on this next map?
So I think King's Row is definitely one of those maps that is immediately in contention. The main concern for me is that if number 1 do pick King's Row, they are opening themselves up 2 flanks. And that was one thing that they were lacking, especially when we saw them on Lighthouse. They were taken advantage of by SK a lot of the time, Barcode too, to an extent on that Sojourn, just using the power slide to be able to find those perches, hold that off angle, wait for the entire team to push through, and then immediately punish. And if you're not able to do very similar results on King's Row, you're not going to have a fun time on this map. And as I look below, I get to be smug. I'm right. It is going to be King's Row. But that also does immediately just grow that seed of fear in my stomach. Because again, if you're not able to control those flanks, if you're not able to deal with that really aggressive Lucio pushing into your face, or Barcode could just popping up out of nowhere with a fully charged railgun and an overclock to say hello with, then it's going to be really difficult to find any ground on this map. The one ray of hope for me for number 1 on Overbuff being able to deal with that is honestly the fact that they were able to deal with the overclock and the Death Blossom coming through with a absolutely gorgeous back-to-back boop coming through from Safrona. Yeah. That Lucio, she played that map next to pixel perfect.
Yeah, she was amazing, and also Cool Guy there to maybe counter that as well with to counter the other Sojourn and hit shots back, because Cool Guy does hit those shots as well. The one thing for number 1 Overbuff, I guess, well, they're going on defense first of all, Moxie. I mean, this is going to be maybe a bit of a difference maker here, because they can actually play together and hold these choke points where they don't really, I mean, yes, you would benefit from flanking, but at the same time, you don't really need to, right?
Yeah, I think the main concern is that Barcode on this Sojourn is just going to have that mobility to be able to immediately book it onto the high ground opposite point.
Right, yeah.
And if you lose control of that, you're going to be forced to pull back into Hotel. As we see Barcode just looking for that Widowmaker, going to immediately swap onto the Sojourn, not finding the insta-kill that they were looking for, as Dart Monkeys already off of the threat that Widow has caused have been able to move through choke.
Yeah, and there you go. The 5-person group up of number 1 Overbuff allows Barcode to look for that left side flank immediately. Just get that railgun charge. Cool Guy tried to find the follow-up shot, but it's a lot harder in the situation they're in, because Aspen does what Aspen does. Finding the first pick of every map so far gets Cool Guy. Now Moving Fish gets Safrona, and with that, it's over for number 1 Overbuff.
Yeah, and again, this is one of the Achilles heels when you group up for number 1 Overbuff, when you're playing into that Sojourn, right? Because not only does Barcode get that left angle flank, she gets to fire into the entirety of the team. So that railgun is charging up at a rapid pace, as opposed to Cool Guy, who's having to deal with flanks, deal with pressure from every single angle, and still try and hit the shots to be able to keep pace with the damage.
Yeah, it's one of the oldest strategies in the book, the hammer and the anvil tactic, right? I mean, you just get flanked immediately on both sides. It's really hard to deal with. And now Barcode has that railgun shot here on this front line, looking for backline. Number 1 Overbuff perfectly playing this corner, and now they can benefit from this. Both Sojourns at even angles. However, Dart Monkey are the one with the ultimates. Moving Fish is going to build that Primal Rage in this fight. They're looking to build it. Just go forward, take some damage, and then fall back. 90% on that Primal Rage. Now they push forward, look for the right click on the front line. Now they build the Primal Rage. They're going to go in surely in this next fight to create some space for the rest of their team. Now they pop the Primal Rage. Number 1 Overbuff. They have the Kitsune Rush, so they can sustain through this actually, but Cool Guy separated. No! They're the one to actually find Moving Fish with that Kitsune Rush, but Turing on the other side taken out as well. So now you're down both Winstons, but Cool Guy's still healthy in this fight. Soap finds Barcode, and now Dart Monkeys. They have a Kitsune Rush, Moxie, but it looks like that Aspen's opting to save it for next fight, but no, she pops it now actually late. They have that Reaper as well. Aspen got traded, Soap finds SK. Now the Reaper, it's late, but it gets the phone and it gets Cool Guy, and somehow Dart Monkeys won off of the back of that Reaper and Kitsune Rush.
Yeah, Dart Monkeys, they know that not only did Moving Fish go down before Turing, their spawn is a lot closer. So even if you go down after Kitsune Rush gets thrown, the team is still going to be able to benefit. Zemra is still able to push up and guarantee all of that space, dropping that Death Blossom to push number 1 on Overbuff back even further. The problem is it costs you the Rush and the Primal and the Death Blossom. 3 ultimates. Does number 1 on Overbuff come in with all of the cards in their arsenals to be able to use in this next fight? Dark Monkeys, as a result, have to get proactive. They can't play on the reactive. They start things off, but it means that SK is in the 2 forward position and gets sniped out by Cool Guy. Without the Lucio, they're not going to be able to cleanly disengage from Turing.
No, Zamrit does find Soap, though, on the other side, so it's 1-1. Now that Reaper's taken out of the fight, Cool Guy does have that overclock ready to go for the next fight, but they're going to want to wait for Soap. Meanwhile, Moving Fish does not want to wait for that, actually, and actually finds Cool Guy through the entirety of their team. Even with both supports, with the pocket available, Cool Guy falls. Now Zemric gets Turing, Safrona as well, and somehow Dart Monkeys, even behind an ultimates, they actually come back in this next fight.
Again, it's that trade game. SK goes down, Soap also goes down as number 1 over try and commit and stagger out the kills from Dart Monkeys, but the Lucio is just back faster. As Soap, have you been spotted out? They have to.
He's checking. I guess so. He dropped. I mean, they dropped, so now they've dropped back into the front line there. Into third point, Reaper ult available. Overclock popped from Cool Guy to create some space, and Dart Monkeys are totally fine because Soap also popped that Reaper ult. So now, if Dart Monkeys don't lose anybody here, Zemrit might fall. But no, they're the one to actually get the kill. Cool Guy does have a huge disruptor shot, however, does find Aspen and Zemrit, but at what cost, Mochi?
Oh my goodness. 2 kills to 1 disruptor shot. Coming on through for Cool Guy. This is number 1 in Overbuff trying to slam the brakes to get the Siren Song, the control of point C on King's Row. Stop the payload for the attackers at any point, and they just get stuffed up in these chokes, which is perfect for the Sojourn to be able to farm. The problem is that number 1 in Overbuff have fallen for that Siren Song. They heavily committed in to trying to control that fight because they prized the stall tactics and the choke control over ultimate restraint, and as a result, they're only coming in with support ultimates in this next fight.
Yeah, Tune Rush popped on both sides, so it's even, but Zemrit with the Reaper ult makes it not so even. Gets 2, gets Cool Guy, gets Prismatine. Soap is also traded out, and so is Turing, and now 3 minutes and 24 seconds. Dart Monkeys are absolutely rolling through the rest of the map, and a Widowmaker swap, not really what you want for Cool Guy here, because they're the only ones that can touch. And the Tracer actually is the one to touch. Though Cool Guy actually swapped the Tracer to opt for that, and Soap actually finds Zemrit. They pop the Suzu, they're on the point, but it looks like they're a bit too low. It's just that Lucio, it's just that Winston, and with those 2 alive, the beat drops here. Now Primal Rage, however, on the other side, but it looks like the Melt should be able to come through. No more armor for Turing. Cool Guy's here to touch a little bit longer, but Turing falls, and now the Tracer's the only one to touch. Cool Guy here just alone. Aspen goes low, forced to pop the Suzu, but they push it in at 2 minutes 50 seconds.
Yeah, it's a nice stall, but it is only going to be a stall because, again, unfortunately for number 1, the ultimate restraint just slipped. The second we pushed towards point C, and there was more than 3 minutes on the clock available for Dart Monkeys, everyone on the side of number 1 just panics. They think as long as we keep winning this fight, we've thrown an ultimate in, we've already started throwing away ultimates into this fight, now we have to commit, and they double down instead of pulling back because they think we can still recover. Even if we throw all of our ultimates into this fight, we will have control of choke. We've seen teams get stuck on point C for 3 minutes plus if the defenders are able to stem the bleeding of that payload's movement. And it doesn't happen. Number 1 Overbuff aren't able to find the kills that they're looking for, and so all they can do is stall. All they can do is wait, swap to the Tracer, throw Turing on with the Primal Rage, and that only buys them a good 20 seconds extra because, again, they have no DPS burst because all of the ultimates have been used prior.
Man, I mean, that was just unfortunate for number 1 on Overbuff, but, I mean, I guess you have to see it from their perspective, too, I guess. Like, maybe they thought they could win that fight, right? But unfortunately, it didn't pan out, and unfortunately, that's why you don't really want to play scrappy, right? Actually, like, unfortunately, sometimes when things get that rough, maybe you want to save ultimates for the next fight and not panic and use them there.
Yeah, again, it's like you used ultimates, and so you want to win the fight to justify using those ultimates. So you use even more because you think that's going to cement the fight win. Because from their perspective, and it's absolutely right, if they won that fight, they would have been able to cycle back into them. They would have had that choke control. Unfortunately, we're living in this universe, not a parallel. And as a result, Dart Monkeys are able to finish off the map with 2 minutes and 50, and they have a win condition to the series.
No Steins Gate today, but meanwhile, Barcode finds Cool Guy on the other side, and Barcode also finds Prismatine as well, and doesn't even need that railgun fully charged for the overclock. Just needs a railgun with the right click. Now they win these first fights, allowing them to already be 50% on that overclock.
Oh, that's just salt on the wounds too. That Dark Monkey is not only going to be ahead in terms of ultimate charge, but Barcode's going to be ahead in terms of railgun charge. There's the ult fire coming through. Disruptor shot to make it even harder for number one on Overbuff to be able to make it out of this choke. As Cheering already falls extremely low, has to drop the bubble very early on as that fight, and immediately is chunked down.
Now they have to push forward. Barcode at 80%. Moving Fish jumps in at the choke point. Dart Boy actually going to go low. Safrona finds Moving Fish, so that's an early opening pick because Turing is still nice and healthy. Barcode going to be having that railgun shot, but they're going to have to back up now. Reset, hopefully allow Moving Fish to come back, but this just gives Cool Guy more ult charge. And same with them on Overbuff because they already have that Kitsune rush.
Dark Monkeys are still going to be able to get a contest going. Zamra is just waiting in Hotel to go on a little bit of a flank, get into that backline, provide the seeds of chaos so that everyone else can move through from choke. Because Dark Monkeys are going to be hitting ultimates a little bit faster, but Prismature are actually going to be dropping that Kitsune rush to secure number one on Overbuff. The fight win. I love this, knowing that Dark Monkeys could potentially be coming back with a Primal Rage and that they might be able to stall the fight long enough for others to hit ultimates and win the fight out. Number one on Overbuff throw in the rush, secure it, and secure choke control as well. So one of the major stopping points on point B has now been denied from Dart Monkeys in the first fight.
Yeah, and Dart Monkeys, I mean, unfortunately off the back of Barco getting picked a couple of times there, but now coming to this next fight, they will have those ultimates like you mentioned. So at least they'll have that Kitsune rush against none on Prismatine. But it looks like number one Overbuff, they want to go first. They know they're at an ult disadvantage, so they want to pop them first. But actually, no, they were showing presence, forcing the Kitsune rush already at a Dart Monkeys. Now they're trying to back out and disengage it, but unfortunately they can't. Moving Fish is going to find Soap. They were a little too far ahead. They do drop the beat, and they drop the overclock as well back into this fight. They drop a beat of their own. SK drops a beat. So does overclock come from Barcode. Now Dart Monkeys goes far forward onto Cool Guys, but SK's the one to get picked by Turing, who got massive value just out of Winston Cleave. And on the meanwhile, Moving Fish finds Cool Guys, so that's a one-for-one trade that I think Dart Monkeys are willing to take. As long as Moving Fish comes back, gets healed up in this fight, Soap's going to have that reroll, forces Reaper Shift here. Now the other side, Zenrit pops the reroll, but it's bubbled off. So no fall through damage. And at the same time, the Suzu's popped onto the Reaper onto the inside, but Zemrit, no shift to keep him out of that fight. Dart Monkeys are actually going to be at the negative in this fight because Safrona found Zemrit into that Reaper ult, and now they push forward. You're back even in ult charge. Number one Overbuff are in a pretty good position.
Especially with Barcode being taken down late as well. There goes the burst damage that Dart Monkeys are relying on having high ground control when that payload crosses the corner. So they're going to have to fall back even more distance, allowing number one on Overbuff to continue this cart moving on forward. As Dart Monkeys, without that Sojin, without the opportunity with the railgun charged up to snipe out one of these players, going to have to use the Disruptor and immediately have to back out from that rush as Moving Fish was there. Moving Fish immediately sent packing straight back to the spawn.
Perfect Kitsune rush from Prismatine, and the follow-up damage was crazy. So Dart Monkeys, hopefully they don't get staggered here, right? They don't want to get staggered, but now look at this. The Kariko TPs, Aspen TPs in, allowing for a little bit more stagger time, but it's not too crazy since they died pretty close together. But number one Overbuff, Mox, they're allowed an opportunity to push forward here.
Yeah, number one on Overbuff, because of that team synergy, the fact that they love to play together, make perfect usages of these Kitsune rushes. When they just have that rush and the numbers to back them up, they always are able to win these fights decisively. The problem is when it comes to other ultimates being used. As now they're going to have to win this fight without a rush, as Dart Monkeys have a rush of their own. There's the kite away, number one on Overbuff trying to back out with that Lucio. Unfortunately going to lose Soap, the Disruptor shot making the exit a little bit messier than number one on Overbuff were hoping, but it's not the full team wipe. They did not give away a massive slew of ultimate charge to the other side, so it's still going to be pretty even when it comes to ultimate economy. As, Barcode getting a little bit too aggressive, going to be taken out by the mirror.
Yeah, Cool Guy follows through, goes onto the front line now after Barcode was taken out. They get Zemrit as well. Cool Guy is feeling it at the current moment. They're going to keep pushing towards those spawns. Turing's going to have that Primal Rage, and the spawn camp, I'm afraid, Moxie, could come through. Now the Reaper ult from Soap gets Barcode yet again. Also finds an Aspen. Now Moving Fish did find Cool Guy, so that's Cool Guy out when that Sojourn has been absolutely crucial for number one Overbuff to keep pushing forward, but they drop the beat into this fight. They're going to have to tune in rush available. SK pops the beat to actually win this fight. They do have the Winston. They're going to have spawns here now available. Prismatine just dropped that Kitsune rush onto that cart. Now they can go forward. They still have Soap here, so that damage output is available from that Reaper, but now that overclock is back from Cool Guy. Turing taken down low. Gonna have to need a lot of resources from Prismatine, but it doesn't look like it's there. Turing have to use that Suzu to keep them alive, but the Suzu's not there to stop Zemrit from getting a huge Reaper ult, and that's a full team wipe for Dart Monkeys.
Oh my goodness, Barcode with the swap onto Bastion. Coming through, and with the burst damage on this side lane as well, forcing number one on Overbuff to take cover behind the payload, ready to dive up, and when they're ready for the dive, the burst damage is there for Dark Monkeys to be able to win out that fight. SK with that Cyber are able to sustain the team long enough for the recovery to come on through. They don't have ultimates though. In this next fight, Barcode now going to be swapping back onto that Sojourn with their job done. She was able to stall the fight. She was able to just be there with the burst damage threat to be able to win them out. And now you have to go back to the Sojourn to keep pace with Cool Guy as Aspen with that Kitsune Rush is looking to keep Dark Monkeys in control of this fight. There it is. 2 picks, 3 picks immediately coming on through. Dark Monkeys not dropping the Kitsune Rush until number one on Overbuff was so deep into point C that even with the Lucio speed amp, they were not able to cleanly disengage from the Kitsune Rush, as opposed to dropping it around the first corner when number one on Overbuff try and tease it out of the Kiriko before pulling on back. Beautiful adaptation coming through from the defensive team.
Now Turing gets the high ground. They're going to have their own Kitsune Rush in this fight now. They go forward, try to take some space here onto that cart, but Turing taking down half HP. Forced to pop the Suzu is Prismatine on the other side. Dart Monkeys, who's well aware of this. Now they pop the overclock, knowing there's no Suzu. The shot already from Barcode on the Soprano, but so they did find moving fish. So now down your Winston. How do you win this fight? It's through SK, who goes forward onto Prismatine, who had to use their Suzu early, and now number one on Overbuff. They have no heals. SK goes forward yet again to get Cool Guy, and now 50 seconds left. It's looking scary for number one on Overbuff.
They are going to be coming in with a couple of ultimates, Kitsune Rush, as well as try and force Dark Monkeys back. Even if Dark Monkeys just use that rush to disengage, it's still going to be space gain for number one on Overbuff. It's still going to be a choke negated. And Dark Monkeys are playing pretty aggressively around the corner again! Jeez. Barcode gets taken out early. There's the rush coming through from number one on Overbuff, as Dark Monkeys actually trying to make up for the absence of the Sojourn. Push in with a very aggressive primal coming through from Moving Fish, disrupting the entire attacking side so they can't actually get on top of the rush to be able to use its effects.
Now, this is the aggressive playstyle of Dark Monkeys. They want to keep setting up Barcode in these positions where she feels comfortable to actually go for those aggressive positioning. Sometimes it results in them getting picked, but in this fight, it actually allows them to force beat drop. Now the reroll from Soap. It's a Hail Mary. It finds two. It gets SK, gets Zemra, but Barcode's back yet again to find the trade-off. But with just the reroll committed and the beat drop coming in the next fight, Dark Monkeys going to have that Kitsune Rush and a reroll of their own, and Zemra has been big on the defensive side.
They're going to have a chance to contest. Cool Guy has the overclock. Barcode back onto that Bastion once again to have that burst damage without being noticed. Number one Overbuff cannot leave the payload, otherwise overtime is off. As we see the tank mode coming on through from Barcode, the rush from Aspen. Dark Monkeys using it to immediately push onto the card, and there's Barcode's damage amplified.
And they just follow through, and Dart Monkeys to win the series 2-0 over number one on Overbuff. What a series, and Dart Monkeys, great job to hold things out with the Kitsune Rush off Aspen, off the back of aggressive Lucio play. Just overall fantastic team play from Dart Monkeys.
You know, what's more terrifying than a Bastion? A Bastion with Kitsune Rush.
You can't kill it either with like a railgun from Sojourn, right? Because it's in the Bastion form, you can't headshot it.
It's terrifying, yeah. The fact that the head hitbox is on the behind rather than the head. It's really hard to be able to deal with that Bastion, and that's what we see Barcode really taking advantage of. It's the second time that she swaps to that Bastion, knowing that it doesn't matter about how slow you are coming out of that spawn. You literally just need to walk 2 meters and you're already into that fight. And because everyone else is so focused on everything going on around them, dealing with the Winston, having to deal with the Sojourn coming on through, trying to track the railgun charge as well, everyone just has to ignore the Bastion. And it's very similar to when we see teams go for the defensive Widowmaker emergency push in case of you're about to get thrown over in King's Row point C. You just the Widowmaker, go onto the sidelines, everyone else is distracted, and you're free to line up your shots.
Is it the new thing? Are you saying emergency Bastion is the new stall? Is that real? Is that what it is?
I'm here for it.
I mean, it makes sense, right? With Winston bubble, because I guess that's the only downside with Widowmaker, right? Widowmaker has to get a headshot. Obviously, it sounds simple and easy, but how do you hit a headshot when there's Winston bubble? It has so much health, right? It has more than you would think.
Yeah, well, the Bastion just gets to chunk through both the Winston and the bubble, but do you know what? We're getting to talk to one of the players on the other end of this break, hopefully, so maybe we get to ask Barcode herself.
Oh, that'd be exciting, but we'll be going to a short break while we let Barcode join in the server. We'll see you guys in just a bit for that interview in just a moment. Everyone, and welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup qualifier number 2, and we have a winner today, Chicken Dinner SK. Congratulations on your win with Dart Monkeys over number 1 on Overbuff. How you going? How you doing?
Oh, thank you. I'm good.
So we definitely saw a very aggressive Lucio playstyle coming out from you, especially on Lighthouse. And Kiriko is great at enabling that aggression. Because you've been a support player for so long, is Kiriko your favorite co-support to work alongside, or do you prefer other supports from different metas?
Oh, that is a great question. I actually do love playing with Kiriko because she enables me to int my brains out. If I have an Ana, she has to aim at me and hit me, and I'm doing all sorts of crazy things, but Kiriko can just look in my general direction, and also the Suzu gets me out when I make terrible mistakes inevitably.
Do you feel like Lucio is like in a meta right now where it's very hard to kill? Like you're just almost unkillable with how many, like you said, inting your brains out?
Yeah, you can basically do whatever you want. As long as their Sojourn doesn't have 100 rail to headshot you, you can be all up in there. I love it. It's so much fun.
Do you have any tips then for other fellow Lucio players? Because I mean, I'm the same. When I try and go in as Lucio, I int my brains out, but I go down. You stay alive a lot longer. So is there a secret strategy to your survivability?
No, I would say the key to Lucio is surviving as long as you can, but getting the most value out of it while you survive. So you don't just want to be hanging out in the back, but yep.
Oh, yeah, it makes sense. Well, in that case, to change topics, maybe to change questions, how does it feel maybe going from a, less serious environment, or more, I guess, more of a solo environment, like playing ranked and in streaming and stuff, to coming to the Calling All Heroes Challengers Cup, where you guys get to play together and actually work on your team synergy and your communication with a group of people in a pretty safe environment?
It is such a breath of fresh air. That was our second time playing together. We warm up scrimmed for an hour before this, but the team's coming together so fast, and everyone's working. We have Jake helping us out with coaching, and we're meshing together. As the longer we play, the better we get. It's so much fun.
So if you guys have only been scrimming for an hour, what exactly is the comm structure like inside the team?
We have moving fish say, "I'm jumping," and then we go, and then I ult track, and then Aspen tells us if we should kite back their ults and things, and then Barcode says, "I'm gonna ult," and then Zemrit says, "I am Reaper," and everything works out.
That's a perfect depiction of what's happening in this current meta. Thank you, SK, for coming. Do you have anything you want to say before we let you go?
Dart monkeys win. That's all. Thank you.
Good way to end it. Thank you for coming for the interview, SK. It's good to talk to you. Congratulations on your win.
Thank you. Thank you.
But that was SK from Dart Monkeys, and honestly, a fantastic show from them. To go 2-0 over a team such as #1 Overbuff, where, like we mentioned before, I mean, in the Empower Cup before, reaching 3rd/4th place before, that's a pretty impressive win.
I'm just terrified at what time is gonna enable this team to become. They looked so synergized. Their dives were really coordinated, especially on King's Row. Like the amount of aggression we saw coming in from them when they really capitalized off of Barcode going for those really aggressive early peaks on that Sojourn. And Moving Fish was able to use the space created by that Sojourn to just jump into the backline. Oh my goodness, that was all just off of an hour of scrims. What are the next couple of days going to see Dart Monkeys turn into?
Fine-tuning. Hopefully they can make a run at it. But ladies and gentlemen, we will go into a short break. When we come back, we'll have the third match for you guys of the Swiss format. So you're not going to miss it. We'll be back in just a little bit. So see you guys shortly. Welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup number 2, or qualifier number 2, I should say. We're coming into game number 3, where we have United in Chaos versus Mochi. And both teams are 1-1 at the current moment, Moxie. So it's obviously going to be a bit of a close game leading to this one. And honestly, leading after these past 2 games, it's going to be hard to follow it up. But I could see both these teams really bringing their all coming into this third game of the day.
Yeah, Swiss stage and still first 2-2 as well, so there's going to be a lot of pressure to be able to secure up that first map of control and find a little bit of confidence as well as a safety bubble to really make sure that you have a little bit more comfort heading into that second match of the day. First 2s are always really brutal. You have to adapt so quickly to your opponent's strategy, whether or not that's the composition that they're running, how aggressive they're being, whether they're being really passive or defensive and waiting for you to slip up and make mistakes as well. It really does come down to being able to adapt on the fly.
It really does. And I think that it's really important to actually change to those compositions that are good at the current moment, right? We talked about before, we have Roadhog taking potentially a backseat to Winston, which we've seen quite a bit of today. And obviously some people are willing to change, but in terms of synergy with teams, players know how to play around this Winston composition, right? You have pretty much a set play. Everybody knows how to dive with Winston. You go in, you try to go for kills. And then in this meta with Sojourn builds up the railgun shot, looks for the one shots, and then that's pretty much fight win, right? I mean, it's just kind of like a consistent battle back and forth, and you have the Reaper going and killing things. And we talked about at the break, Moxie, this meta has been really fun to watch and a joy to watch because it's so fast paced, right? Fights start and end very, very quickly.
Yeah, it is extremely snappy, and it does put a lot of pressure as well on communications. And so it's going to put a lot of pressure on synergies of these rosters coming on through, as we're going to have a look at United in Chaos, my personal favorite for team names of everyone participating in this second qualifiers for Calling All Heroes. I'm very happy that I get to cast them because I'm a big fan of United in Chaos, as it is going to be Slee, Kylie, Rain, Wolf Rider, and Kinetic coming in for this team. I'm really looking forward to getting to see what exactly they have up their sleeves, as they have actually had quite a bit of experience in the marginalized gender competitive scene. They actually participated in the Overwatch Empowerment Cup. 3 of their members were able to place 1 in the top 2, 1 in the top 8, and I believe 1 in the top 12.
Yeah, and a lot of these players, I mean, Kylie and Rain, both DPS players that are amazing in their own right. I mean, this is allowing them the opportunity to potentially go forward into the Path to Pro, right? Obviously, this is not a replacement for Path to Pro. In fact, Calling All Heroes, the entire point is to allow players to actually feel like they can go into the larger ecosystem of Overwatch and participate with other players in the larger Overwatch ecosystem. And on the other side, Mochi, obviously an incredible team in their own right, with Harley Quinn probably going to be on that Reaper. And obviously these compositions has been something all of these teams have to work on. Like you mentioned, synergy, right? It's all on Mochi. Mochi, we've seen them before as a team, but coming into this, a lot of different changes, a lot of different players coming into this Challenger Cup qualifiers number 2.
Sunshine, I remember, has an absolute monster Sojourn. So I'm going to definitely be keeping an eye on her to be able to come in with that burst damage. And I mean, we've talked about the Winston making a lot of space, but the Sojourn really gets to play off of that space that the Winston creates, as well as the Lucio to an extent too, right? Both of those 2 heroes go into the backline, go in for that dive so that everyone is sort of distracted and tries to deal with them, so that that Sojourn has the time to be able to set those shots up, cleave the damage in with the railgun, and then build in with that ramped up railgun fire that you're able to snipe out one of those players who might be on the run, isolated out either by the Lucio's meddling or the Winston.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be a big deal to actually build up that railgun like you mentioned, and also for the rest of the team, I mean, to continually follow up onto that Sojourn, right? Like you mentioned, the Winston diving in, creating that space, also getting kills, because really at the end of the day, that's what Winston is trying to do. And on the Jang Tower, this is the first Lijiang Tower we're seeing today. We saw 2 Ilios Wells in the first 2 matches, but coming into Lijiang Tower, Moxie, I mean, we could see a little bit of variation in the composition, specifically maybe we see some more Junkrat. Who knows?
If we get off to control base, absolutely, I would be down to see a couple of picks of Junkrat coming on for potentially even Doomfist on the tank as well, taking advantage of the fact that if you get that slam to connect onto one of those players and they get shoved into the wall, they get a little bit extra stun. But I really think we're probably just going to get to see the Winston versus the Winston, or maybe a variation of Roadhog.
It could be. I mean, maybe listen on Night Market, I guess, where the Roadhogs can both play through main. But like you mentioned, I mean, Winston kind of has been a staple in this matchup, right? But at the same time, I don't think it's out of the question to play Roadhog. I think you could run them wherever you want. It's just a little bit more puggy, I would say. Like if puggy's a bit of a slang term, but I think that it's more of a, you know, your group, you're kind of split. You're playing all over the place, playing for picks. That's kind of what you do with Roadhog. You can't really play that coordinated dive because he doesn't have a jump ability. He doesn't have a bubble. He doesn't have a lot of things for his team. Roadhog, all he really does is just create space for himself and look for picks with that hook.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what Roadhog is known for, right? You're not playing for the backline dive, you're playing to yank someone out of their team's backline and into your team's frontline, so they have to heavily overcommit to either being able to safeguard that player who has been picked out by the hook, or just let the pick go through. As we head over towards Night Market, this is where I'm expecting to see the Winstons come into play, potentially a Farah, maybe to come on through as well if these players want to take advantage of those skyboxes. However, it does look like both of these teams are just going for the static mirror match lockup of the full hard meta coming on through. Claire, I know you're teasing the Roadhog. I've been burnt by the spawn teasers before. It's gonna be a Winston.
Oh, for sure, right? Right? Okay. No. Actually gonna lock the hog. I mean, you can. I guess it's interchangeable. Let's see the first time we're gonna see a Roadhog versus Winston stylistic matchup. That isn't just on top of you know, insult to injury like the previous series were, but now United Chaos already go forward. And they find the early pick onto Vagusny, but at the same time, Claire to find the trade back onto the Winston. They'll take that, right? United Chaos are gonna be down their Winston. Now Mochi's up 1 and still have the Roadhog.
Clara as well on this Roadhog is going to be extremely tanky and also self-sustainable. So United and Chaos can't even peek to try to trade out any of these picks because then they're opening themselves up to get hooked. And instead, it's actually going to be the swap of the Winston onto the Roadhog. These teams have been watching Korean Contenders. We're getting to see Roadhog over the Winston as the damage burst that's there for the Hog, allowing Mochi to be able to move forward. Yet another cheeky pick on hook onto Slee, who is going to be able, with that tankier health pool, to be able to keep themselves alive. But still, all of this is point percentage and still coming through from Mochi. But there's the pick onto Claire. Roadhog sticking around a little bit too long as United and Chaos finally breaking out of choke.
Yeah, unfortunately for Claire, Slee had a very, very good hook to swap back by Dwayne, which they swapped a while ago. Now we're going to go towards that point, try to look for picks here, and actually force United and Mochi to fall back off this point. Sunshine and Sneaky Kirby both going to go down. The point flips over to 39% as United and Chaos take control, and they're going to have ultimates to match Mochi's next fight.
Mochi, however, going to have that Kitsune Rush already built up to try to crack choke hold, and as a result, United and Chaos not holding as aggressive as Mochi were when they were in that defensive position, and Kinetic holding onto the sign barrier, trying to keep United and Chaos in this fight long enough for Wolf Raiders to be able to hit a Kitsune Rush of their own. There's Mochi using that rush to try to get back onto that point so they can at least try and find the split.
Hog hooks out of both sides. Claire has that Hog ultimate, but in the meanwhile, the overclock available for Rain. The whole Hog is available and is going into the backline, but unfortunately, not a lot of disruption until Claire actually hooks right after the whole Hog, but at the same time, Slee takes down Claire on the other side. Now it's a Sojourn for a Roadhog, and it looks like Mochi's not willing to fight without theirs, so they're going to back up after that, and Chaos actually did a pretty good job holding on the point.
We're playing Tank Roulette at the moment. Off the Roadhog on to the Orisa goes Claire. Trying to use things like the Javelin Spin as well as the Throw to just push onto Slee, deny either the health heal or the hook from coming on out and catching one of these Mochi members out early. As unfortunately Sneaky Kirby does get picked out. And there again, that hook coming on through. It is going to be the shift to make sure that you at least have the golden armor to prevent any follow-through damage. But Fortify is not going to cover the entirety of your team.
Jeez.
As Slee moves forward and finds the Reaper instead.
Yeah, that's a good pick from Slee. As they started Winston, now onto the Hog. Proved to actually force Claire off of Hog just through their sheer hooks. So now they fall back to the point, actually. 83 on the board. They're going to have that Reaper ult, and they'll probably have another Kitsune Rush building up soon. So Mochi's going to have to go hard with some support ultimates. They pop the beat drop, or Kylie with that Reaper ult waiting for them to push into point, but it's too little too late. They come into point with the Reaper ult, and in the meantime, Mochi actually come through after the beat Reaper ult, and engage was perfect for them to take control of the point yet again.
It's so ironic that Kylie, who was waiting in that corner for Mochi to try and contest with a Death Blossom of their own, unfortunately, she goes down to the Death Blossom already used by Harlequin off of the back of the Lucio sign barrier to cover her. As now Mochi have been able to find that flip and choke control coming back in full for this team. Curry still has that Death Blossom, could potentially be able to teleport into the backline of the team to be able to use it as a distraction. Mochi holding onto that Kitsune Rush, gorgeous disruptor shot as well, preventing United in Chaos from breaking out of that cover, forcing Mochi to being able to use that rush and keeping United in Chaos stuffed up in these rooms.
Wolf Rider still alive in the backline. Sunshine finds Wayne. Here comes that Reaper ultimate, but the Suzu was perfectly placed, and the Javelin shoves right into the heart of Kylie's. Slee does find Claire with the whole hog, but if a reset is going to come through, it should be now, but Slee says no. We want to win now. They hook Harley Quinn, they pop the Kitsune Rush, and now they're moving forward towards this point against no tank. The overclock's on the point of Sunshine, but it's against the beat drop. They have no heals of their own. They're just trying to play their lives, so they're going to get hooked by Slee on the other side, so a little bit of overclock is wasted. Now they pop the disruptor shot onto the point, but now Slee comes to the outside with that hook ready to go. They actually took point flip at the same time. Now comes that Orisa ultimate, slams into the ground, but no kill follow-up just yet. Claire forced to try to live and play their life. At the same time, Rain popping the overclock on the other side, has the space, but is booped off the map by Vegas Stun. Vegas Stun at the same time, but Kinetic also boops Harlequin, so it's a 1-for-1 trade, but without the overclock, without the Sojourn, how much can you really do? Kinetic says a lot, because they go into the back line, but now the beat drop's forced to commit for Mochi at the same time. They don't have any ultimates, it's just 2 supports in Orisa. How much can they really do? Harlequin died with the Reaper ult. United in Chaos are still healthy on this point. Get the hook as well. Kylie with the follow-through damage, and what a boop, what a play from Kinetic to allow United in Chaos to follow through damage on the Harlequin, who had that Reaper ult ready to go and secure that team fight for Mochi.
Aggressive Lucios are living for this meta, Dustin. They are living their best lives ever since Overwatch 2 dropped. And it really is just that Lucio difference coming on through for the side of United in Chaos. Kinetic is able to find their way into that backline, picks up 2 kills, denies Harlequin from being able to use Death Blossom as well to control center of that point, forces Claire to have to go aggressive and try and find that pick onto Slee. The Javelin throw is really good onto the Roadhog, but unfortunately the Orisa is just chunked down so quickly once Fortify and Javelin Spin wears out. As we head over towards Control Center, is this where we get to see the Junkrat? Kaylee's already picked up.
All right, a little bit of Junkrat edge play. Kylie gonna go roll out on it towards that inside white room where they want to control it hard. Mochi's gonna be well aware of that after they see a little of those mines come out, and they opt to actually control the white room versus the Junkrat. Now Slee goes into the back line, knowing that they have that Junkrat support, but they're actually hit by that Javelin meanwhile at the other side. So Slee's forced to fall back, hold the shield up as Kylie pumps in spam, but they're gonna need to start finding shots in soon because the other side, Rain back on the flank. Now they have full control of white room, pops the disruptor shots, the Suzu's forced to pop, but Harlequin on the other side finds Kylie, finds Connect as United in Chaos actually tried to push out of white room and get that point control as the point unlocked, but Mochi had it on lock and flipped the point in their favor.
I feel so sorry for Slee trying to play Reinhardt into Orisa. Do you know what? Slee shares my sentiment. Immediately she's going to swap off the Reinhardt. The fact that your fire strikes get eaten by the Javelin spin, that unfortunately the throw of the Javelin can immediately cancel out your charge and just immediately catch you as soon as you drop that shield. It forces you to just swap onto that Roadhog because Orisa into Reinhardt is just an unfair matchup where the Orisa is always going to win. Slee on the Roadhog now looking for that pick. The hook lands onto Sneaky Kirby, who wasn't stealthy enough. That's a nat 1 critical fill on the Kiriko.
Slee, huge opening pick, but unfortunately it was 1-for-1, so now they have to play slow, waiting for their teammate to respawn. Mochi's gonna have some ultimates. They have that overclock ready to go, and although Slee's going to the point again, and here he goes for another, or there they go for another hook. Doesn't unfortunately find it just yet. Now has to back up towards main. Got a hook onto the tank rather on the Orisa. The Kitsune Rush pop from Wolf Rider on the other side. Sneaky Kirby doesn't have theirs just yet, so Sunshine has to play back, look for some sneaky off-angle overclock shots, but doesn't find it just yet. Waiting for that Kitsune Rush. Now the Orisa drops on the front line. The hook comes out, but immediately Javelin. But they're gonna have that Roadhog ultimate in just a moment. Sunshine goes incredibly aggressive because they know the hook is not there, and now the Kitsune Rush is popped, but Slee slams Claire into the corner and blows them up with that whole hog. So Claire's out of the fight. The Kitsune Rush is here, so they're gonna have to force the beat drop. Harlequin's gonna need this Reaper ult. It's gonna have to be huge, otherwise United in Chaos are heavily in control in this fight. Reaper ult available. Do they go for it? They still have point control. Kylie forced the shift, so nobody is, so they're not here to actually sustain to the Reaper. Harlequin, they go for it, but the Suze's pop, so no ults are found, no kills are found, as Rain on the other side pops the overclock. The dodges come through from Sunshine on the other side. The overclock, can it find the one shot? No, the Lucio movement's too good, but unfortunately it gets it too little too late now at the same time. Kinetic gets Harlequin. Kylie with the Reaper gets Claire as well. So finally, at the other side, United Chaos flip things around. And Mochi, they committed a bit of ultimates, but United Chaos now flipped the point.
Mochi are actually really happy with how that fight panned out. They were able to stall to 96%. Yes, they used a lot of ults. United and Chaos had to use ultimates to be able to win. And as a result, Mochi have got through choke for free. They can immediately just splinter onto this point, take an off angle for Sunshine on the Sojourn, who's so close to boarding overclock, and immediately eject United and Chaos, who have no ultimates other than this rush to try and turn this fight around.
Can they do it? I mean, they don't really have anything. They're going to actually pop, even though they're down in this fight, and they still have point control to work with. So the Kitsune Rush is forced, the Overclock is forced as well. Maybe they wanted to pop ultimates. So this isn't too bad for United Chaos. Although they use that ultimate, they're going to have a beat drop soon, but they don't really have too many members that can deal a lot of damage on this point. Although it's still in control for them. The beat drop committed for Kinetic. Mochi still in this fight as well. The Reaper ult available for Harlequin once more. There's no beat to help anybody on the side, and Sunshine and Claire combined for 2. The Reaper ult finds the back line, and Mochi looked to equalize onto control. The point still not flipped yet because Slee here is on Wrecking Ball. 3%, 2%. Can anybody touch? It doesn't look like it. And Mochi make it 1-1 on Lijiang Tower.
We're going the distance. We're jetting off to Gardens. And unfortunately for United and Chaos, they have no choice but to throw in that Kitsune Rush in that last fight. The point percentage is too far against them. They've just lost one of their players too. Slee has to come back onto that Hammond. The only way they're turning the tide of that fight is if off the back of Rush, they're able to find a pick and use it to build ultimates up super quickly to contest Mochi, who with that off angle from Sunshine just comes in with the Sojourn, builds into that railgun charge, and then goes absolutely ham. As moving over to Gardens, this is potentially where we get to see the Winstons coming into play. It's maybe going to be a little bit more daunting for some of those tank players to actually hardlock into it, given the fact that we did actually see the tank swap having to come through on Night Market, and as a result, it is only going to be United and Chaos who decide to field the Winston.
Yeah, the Orisa being a staple for Mochi at the moment after they did lock that Roadhog in the first round. Now pretty much hard locking that Orisa. Looking for that Winston on the front line. Slee taking a lot of pressure. Incoming Claire pushes the side of United Chaos back, and Harlequin actually finds Kylie. So now they push forward across the bridge. The boop off the map, but no. Teleport back. Kinetic only gets 1. It's a worthwhile trade-off for them. But United Chaos, they're still missing everybody. And Mochi are first in control.
And there's the swap onto the Roadhog. This is where it was really risky. The good news is in Overwatch 2, you do retain a maximum of 30% of your ult charge. So the swap onto the Roadhog off the Winston is not going to cost United in Chaos that aspect. It has cost them the fight, and subsequently it's cost them initial point control. And they're actually having to force their way through White Room rather than going onto Bridge for fear of being knocked off by the Orisa or the Lucio.
Yeah, around the point, Sunshine looking for a backline with that overclock, but only sees the Roadhog. So no targets just yet. Now goes for the backline, but doesn't hit the shot necessarily on terrain. However, the follow-through damage is there for Mochi, coming around the backside to stop that flank from happening. But Slee just actually shuts down Sunshine by themselves, but Harlequin and Claire follow through after the Javelin and Kitsune Rush from Mochi.
Yeah, a little bit of an unnecessary Kitsune Rush, to be honest, but I get why Mochi are just wanting to lock these fights into position. The problem for United and Chaos is that the main way to counter this Orisa isn't in the Roadhog, it's actually in Rain. And Rain is target focused numero uno for Mochi. Every single time we see that Sojourn, they are just being hounded either by Sunshine or Vegas Stun, going in on that Lucio into that backline, forcing Rain away so they can't just melt Claire.
Now United Chaos come through the White Room once again, but they don't have a lot of shields to actually get through here. Now the Kitsune rushes pop, the pre-fire hook connects on the Harlequin, but the sustain is there. Also, the fact the Reaper is a little bit tanky, they can't get the kill. Meanwhile, on the other side, Rain trying to look for backline. Kylie somehow falls off the map on Tracer. Rain goes down to Sunshine, and United Chaos, everything's falling apart. It really is chaos at the current moment for them. Popping the Roadhog, popping a beat drop as well, but you're down 3. How do you win this fight? It's only off the back of Slee's hooks, but they missed one hook. Now they're coming back into this fight, and Sunshine hits those shots on the Kylie again into the overclock. Slee can't hit those Hail Mary hooks. Now Reaper ult comes into the backline. The Suzu's popped. They do sustain. through that reroll. Rain on the other side pops the overclock, but goes down to Sunshine once again. It's only Slee to find a lot of the damage here for United and Chaos onto the point to find two. Vegas Sun does go down to the fight as well, but Claire, they have that Orisa ult. They can go forward onto this Roadhog to make sure they don't find a lot of damage. The Suzu's popped. Now they know that the Orisa ult should be big from Claire. Onto the point goes Slee. Slee goes in the back line. Connect does find Harlequin, and Kylie is back in this fight finally, but at the same time, Sunshine has been getting shot after shot. Taking Wolf Rider down under the Katsuya rush on the point, the Orisa ult to finally take out Slee, and Mochi clean through United Chaos after a pretty hectic round. They'll give them Lijiang Tower.
I am so happy to get to see Orisa successful. She's honestly my favorite tank. She's terrifying too. This is the thing, Orisa isn't really meta in terms of tank heroes because of just how quickly she gets deleted. Her head hitbox is pretty much unchanged from Overwatch 1. So the Sojourn just gets to farm railgun charge off of her usually, and then absolutely melt her into tiny little molten pieces of fortified gold. The problem for United and Chaos is that they're not getting that time to be able to ramp up into the railgun ult charge, and so Claire is free to just peek when the team is pushing in, hit a javelin, block the hook with the spin, and immediately make sure that she's actually able to book it behind cover when the Roadhog starts to push forward, when the Sojourn is looking to find her, and instead it's Sunshine with those off angles playing from the far back, who's balled up the railgun ult charge, has that snipe available, and the second that Rain tries to look for that peek and find the Orisa, her location is picked out, and immediately everyone on Mochi just jumps on that poor Sojourn.
Fantastic team play from Team Mochi and Claire and Sunshine specifically. But ladies and gentlemen, we're going to a short break. When we come back, we'll be coming into map number 2. And this has been a close series. Lijiang Tower was incredibly close. So we'll be right back with map number 2. See you guys shortly. Welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup qualifier number 2, and we are coming in mid-series versus United in Chaos and Team Mochi. And thus far on map number 1, it was looking to be close, but like you mentioned, with Claire on the Orisa, those swaps coming out, it's been very, very good for for Mochi after they made those transitions and after they made those swaps.
Yeah, we were having a little bit of a discussion in the downtime because obviously having lost that control map, it is now going to be up to United and Chaos to try and figure out which map they want to take us to. So far in the day, we've only seen back-to-back picks of King's Row. I think we might actually get to see something like Paraiso coming on through it. Yeah, I gotta be smug. I gotta be smug. This is my theory. This was my theory.
All of them.
Because Slee has been trying to hard force this Winston matchup, right? Every single time we've seen her, she's been wanting to come out from Winston from the get-go, both on every single map, barring Control Center. On Lijiang, you don't really want to run into an Orisa on Eichenwald or King's Row. Winston probably has the best bet of being able to successfully stay picked on Paraiso, just because you can jump over the first block of high ground where the defenders tend to hole up, especially if there's an Orisa, they have to turn around, and then you can punish them as you catch them around the corner, especially heading into street phase. The Orisa is a little bit clunkier to make work as well. You don't have that massive level of high ground control that the Winston is freely able to transition between, which does allow the DPS a lot more room to work with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see if Slee's gonna actually play that Winston instead of playing the Roadhog, because it seemed pretty evident that they wanted to swap off it quite frequently and go to that Roadhog, because maybe that's a bit more of a comfort pick, right? Playing that Roadhog, maybe playing a little bit more on that flank angle and doing those hooks and getting those plays off, because it's been a little bit of a hard time for Rain on that Sojourn to get a lot of value. They're going for flanks, they're doing these sort of things, but it seems like Mochi just has them on red, where they're just continually looking for that Sojourn and ready in position at the back of the map to take them out, even on those flanks.
Here's another thing that United and Chaos could actually retreat back onto, and that is Zarya. It is the Zarya nerf patch. Your bubbles do last the less and have longer cooldowns, but what you still can do is melt with the beam. It goes through the javelin spin, right, which is one of the Orisa's main ports of defense, but no, Slee is going to commit onto the Hog. They are still going to try and run into Claire on this Orisa, and this is my main concern, because the Hog's defensive capability is counted when you get a javelin thrown into your shoulder.
Yeah, and imagine telling somebody that Orisa and Hog are going to be both the only tank characters in 2022. That's crazy what meta we are in today. But Sunshine has with the Railgun Sean over the top side, forces the Roadhog hook, so now Claire goes low onto the point for the Suzus to keep them healthy, and the hook comes out perfectly timed from Slee, just looking for Harlequin. But in the meantime, Rain is traded out 1-for-1, so now you're down Rain. Claire does go low at the opposite side, but they're still healthy, still kept alive, but Slee with a perfectly timed hooked, and on the top side they ping out Sunshine, so they force Sunshine to back up. Now the Lucio here on the front line. Kylie is just free to run rampant on that Lucio. Now Mochi has to back up into their side. They're like around this point right now, Moxie. They're just constantly flanking.
Mochi can still contest. Harlequin is coming back on the Tracer to be able to stall. They're still trying to find these picks onto United and Chaos, but it is going to be Wolf Rider and Slee coming in with the 2 kills necessary to try and cement their position on this point. Mochi still has a couple of players left alive, but they don't have point control. And we are going to see United and Chaos break into street space.
Yeah, I mean, pretty tough point there for Claire. Unfortunately, needed a ton of healing at that point. I wonder who they really got shredded by. I guess it was Kylie on that Reaper to pump that damage into Claire. But now at this other opposite side, Moxie, United Chaos, they're getting that forward positioning.
Yeah, this is the high ground control that the Orisa is really going to find a lot of disadvantage having to deal with, as Sneaky Kirby is picked out by the Railgun Fire coming through from Rain, as that Sojourn with the forwarding position with the high ground control is able to just rain fire and death upon the forces of Mochi, who have no choice but to regroup and wait for the Sojourn. They can't contest this. They can't afford to give more ult charge away to the other side.
Yeah, on the other side, Slee is going to have that Hog ult. They're going to have that Katsune rush. Mochi only going to be relying on that overclock in the Katsune rush. Slee onto the point, has that Hog ult, though at the same time at the top side. The hook comes through. Slee has been perfect with those, but Sneaky Kirby to pop that Suzu keeps them alive, and Sunshine is the one to find the first pick. But Slee, yet again, hook after hook, whole hog to find 2, has been pumping in so much damage on the front line. Just needs a little bit of help from their backline is not even going to fall. Still getting hooked continuously on the front line. The beat drop committed to keep Slee still alive, but Harlequin is just delaying this payload for Claire to come back. And now Kylie's going to have that reroll. Nothing to delay it besides that javelin strike, but at the same time, Slee hits a hook on a Claire at the opposite side. Now that beat drop available for Mochi, they can use it whenever they want, but they opt to play it a little bit slow here, Moxie, and look for hooks.
Yeah, this corner is brutal. A lot of the time attacking teams need an ultimate to be able to break through it. There's an ultimate, there's a defensive terror surge coming through from Claire.
Jesus.
And Slee still able to move forward and find Harlequin. Claire is actually able to take out Kinetic. Without that Lucia, it's going to be pretty hard for United and Chaos to be able to try to disengage as Mochi decides to immediately put the foot on the pedal. There's the forward momentum provided with Alicia when you have all of the aggression in the world. And United and Chaos, again, just not really able to set the ultimate up as fast as they want to off of a really gorgeous disruptor shot coming through from Sunshine, denying them control of the high ground so that Kylie is forced to wait it out, allowing Claire to get in position to use that Terror Surge, allows Mochi full control of the fight from start to finish.
With United Chaos, they have to go with some ultimates here. Slee trying to create some space on the front line, but Mochi, the one to engage first into a hog ultimate, which is a little bit hard for them to continue to push. Actually finds Claire with this overclock. Can Rain finally find that damage they're looking for? Looking for the backline. No, it's Slee to find the hooks continuously. Rain with the disruptor shot with the fall through damage, but Slee has been a standout player for the United and Chaos side as they continue to push through the streets phase. The timing isn't too shabby. If they continue to find the picks here, they can come into this third phase with quite a bit of time.
Yeah, they've been able to deal with the Orisa as well coming through from Claire far better on this map than they were in previous. And a lot of it is just coming down to them getting aggressive and putting themselves all into forward positioning to deal with the Orisa. It's not just down to Slee, it's not just down to Rain. Everyone is pressuring Claire into using things like the Fortify, the Javelin Throw, and Spin very early on, as there immediately is the forward movement from Claire, the Javelin Spin, to prevent Slee from getting a pick off from the player caught on that hook. Brilliant peel coming through from the horse, but not able to find a pick onto United and Chaos just delays the problem.
They just keep backing up. Mochi's the ones to go first always. What a javelin onto Wolf Rider at that back line, and United and Chaos stunted. We're trying to hold on to ultimates for the next fight, but Mochi, they're going to have that reroll. They're going to have a Ristle and a beat drop coming up soon.
Yeah, United and Chaos going to have that Death Blossom. Pretty soon they're going to be able to combo that whole hog and Soundbar if they really want to be able to have some forward push. But Mochi holding on to the Terror Surge and Death Blossom, which together can be an absolute deadly combination in its own right. There's the Terror Surge, no follow through from the Death Blossom. Harlequin holding on to the ult restraint and immediately going to be punished for it. Terror Surge is brilliant at holding players into position, but kill potential it does not have. The charge up time too long, and immediately United and Chaos take full advantage of the fact that Claire in the ultimate form was a little bit too static in her positioning.
It's tough because Reaper, I mean, you have to look for that Suzu, right? I mean, it's just so hard to get a Reaper ult off when you know the Kariko has a Suzu for it to just counter out all that damage.
Yeah, what you ideally want to do is use Terror Surge to bait the Suzu and then Death Blossom over the top, but that doesn't happen.
Oh, yeah. It would have been a smart play. Unfortunately for them, it just took too long to set up, and now they have to go to the other side. The Suzu popped for United and Chaos. Slee going aggressive for those hooks, really putting a lot of pressure onto Mochi with this aggressive Roadhog playstyle. Beat drop committed. They go forward into United and Chaos. They really can't sustain too much longer as Sunshine finds Rain, and it's just on Slee with the hook, but it's right into an Orisa shift, and Orisa has been playing so well for Team Mochi. Now they can continue to push forward, look to find these picks. Sunshine, but a disrupting shot just to make sure Kylie can't find that damage, and United and Chaos are stopped here again in this third phase.
Mochi holding on to this choke as well. We'll still have the Death Blossom, Overclock, and Kitsune Rush to keep United and Chaos stunted in this payload's movement. Not going too aggressive this time either. Claire's about to hit another Terror Surge as Sunshine goes down to a very early pick from the Kiriko, and immediately the floodgates are opened. United and Chaos punishing Mochi for really holding onto that Death Blossom a little bit too long, caught out again in that staticness of the ultimate. And again, they're just having to back away one player down, giving up so much distance on the payload to get a regroup so they can recontest before the finish line.
Overclock on the other side. Sunshine pops it. Now can they find the damage? It looks like they're just using a sustain, trying to run from the killer, the DBD killer of Slee on the other side, who has been on the downside. But at the same time, Rain pops their ultimate, chased down by Harlequin. So the overclock is negated, but Slee does trade back. Sneaky Kirby on the side. Now the Orisa does pop the ultimate. The Roadhog ultimate can't really find enough damage here. The Susu pop to sustain them, but 30 seconds left. Slee just looking to reset fast here. Mochi, the only upside here for United Chaos now, Moxie, is that Mochi committed every ultimate in that last fight.
Yeah, but United and Chaos don't have a lot that they're working with either. Soundbar to try and stall. Slee's actually having to go onto the Orisa to try to go pony versus pony against Claire, trying to bait out a couple of those utilities and keep yourself sustaining in that fight for long enough, absorbing some of the projectile damage coming through from Sunshine in the backline as well. As we're about to hit overtime, United and Chaos have to stall until these ultimates are online. And Kinetic goes down! They needed the Lucio! They needed the Soundbar! They're not gonna have it!
No, what a good pick. What a great pick on a Kinetic. The positioning by Harlequin. Last second, when it mattered most. Overtime ticks down now. They're down too many members. They don't have a beat drop. And that was everything. The hopes and dreams of United Chaos to close out on this map is not going to happen for them. And what a hold by Mochi.
That may just become the most instrumental pick of the entire series coming through between these two teams. If Kinetic had been able to survive and they'd been able to build up to their sound barrier, stall potential is there. United and Chaos could have bought into a couple more of those ultimates. They had the sustainability from the sound barrier. They didn't have to worry about ultimates coming online for Mochi anytime soon, because the ultimate economy was pretty barren for both teams. But Kinetic goes down, and immediately the tide is turned against United and Chaos. Without that Lucio to be able to speed boost them onto the payload, it becomes a race for a player to just throw themselves onto the payload, and they don't have the sustain to live through it.
And just to shout her out, I mean, Slee has been phenomenal on this Roadhog. I mean, the amount of pressure that Slee has been putting down, just going in hook after hook. Even like before the fight begins, Moxie, she keeps just running in and just getting an early hook, getting damage down range, and sometimes resulting in picks for like Wolf Raider and other members of United and Chaos.
And that's exactly what you want to see from your Roadhog player, right? You want her to be aggressive. You want her to look for those picks because it opens up this composition. Even if it doesn't result in a kill, it forces Mochi out of position. It forces Claire to have to push forward and answer back with aggression of her own. And that's where everyone else can just walk past the Orisa and pick apart the team behind her. And that's what was happening. That's what was happening when we saw United and Chaos just continuously pushing that card and applying all of that pressure. But that slows down on point C. And as a result, they don't get to find that full push. Slee, however, off of that performance, is going to be feeling a lot safer on this Roadhog now on the defense. Once again, looking to try and yank some of these players out from position, as Mochi having to burn a lot of abilities to just peek that corner and take high ground.
These flank angles are going to be tough to deal with Slee for, but Slee is opting to play with the team here. Sunshine gets poked down a little bit low on Mochi's side, but Sunshine has been phenomenal so far on this Sojourn. Looks for railgun shots on the back line, pokes Rain down low. Slee gets taken out low during that E, during the heals from the Roadhog, taken out of it by the Javelin from Claire, so perfect timing from them. And Mox, you called that. I mean, this just counters the Roadhog. The Orisa just putting so much pressure into Slee. Whenever Slee tries to go for that heal, it's immediately canceled by a Javelin. Now the Disruptor shot also there to push back United and Chaos, and now they're coming in weak. Everybody low, but Rain finally finds the opening pick, but no! They don't even touch the point.
To be fair, they are being zoned out by an Orisa and a Sojourn. But yeah, no one touches the point. United and Chaos, unfortunately, now going to have to fall back into Streets phase as Mochi going to be able to take high ground control. Sunshine building up towards that overclock, still surviving, going to be able to hold a railgun fire. Charged up already in this fight above Rain's head. Look at it. There's a disruptor shot to block off the high ground, making sure that Rain doesn't get to go toe-to-toe on even ground. As overclock is in play, there's going to be a very early rush coming through from United and Chaos. Steering wheel away from Mochi to start a fight before the attackers were ready to take it.
They're just trying to make sure that they shut down Claire, because Mochi has been going first, Moxie. I mean, they've been doing a good job at pressing the ult keys first, but United Chaos, perfect Kitsune Rush from Wolf Raider gives them that stability that they need.
That one wasn't even to shut down Claire, that was to shut down Sunshine. They know that Rain hasn't got the overclock to go toe-to-toe with Sunshine. They also know that Rain is respawning, so the Railgun ult fire is not going to be at the same level of charge. United Chaos have to go with the rush to eject Sunshine on the forward positioning of the Sojourn. As they not able to find the hook, Mochi immediately going to be pushing in with that overclock. United Chaos having, however, managed to fall back. Might be able to bear the brunt of it, but Kinetic again gets picked out. The Lucio removed, no sound barrier. United Chaos now just have to try and bait as many ultimates from Mochi's side as they can.
Oh my god, this Orisa looks so annoying to play against. And if you don't know in Overwatch, annoying is a compliment. It's good to be annoying in this game. Sneaky Kirby gets Slee, and also United Chaos fall. And look at this time bank, Moxie. 5 minutes and 12 seconds. That's so much to capture out third point.
Oh, the stagger as well onto Kylie, and Wolf Raider secures even more payload distance for Mochi. And yeah, they have a whole bunch of time coming in to be able to get this payload onto that finish line. Which you're looking to wrap up the series. United Chaos, however, with forward spawns, can still pull this off. If anywhere you can slow a payload down for absolute eternity, it's on a hybrid point C. So we see United Chaos starting to move forward. They're not making the first move at the moment. Mochi chunked down extremely low. Vegastan still not actually using that sound barrier, not being baited into using the Lucio ultimate. And Sunshine with the off-angle snipes Rain before the overclock. United Chaos not going first, may just get punished for it.
Harlequin go forward. The beat drop committed. The Suzu here to keep Harlequin's Reaper Ult continuing to go forward. And off the back of Sunshine's pick in Harlequin's Reaper Ult, Mochi look to close out this map. United Chaos have to sustain. They swap Slee over to that Orisa finally, but it might be too little too late. Now Rain has to look for the railgun shot, or the overclock shot, but unfortunately only hits tanks, only finds tanks, and doesn't hit the shot onto Vegastan. At the same time, Sunshine did fall at the same time, so the continued rushes pop for Sneaky Kirby and Wolf Raider. This is even thus far. However, Mochi are down. Their Sojourn still coming back into this fight, and on the other side, Wolf Raider and Rain has that fully charged railgun shot, doesn't find it just yet. And United Chaos want to go forward, but both the Orisas pop their ultimates, and in fact, it's Sleep to find Vega, but at the same time, Sunshine with the overclock finds two. Kinetic and Wolf Raider are both down. Both supports are missing. You don't have those heals anymore. And ladies and gentlemen, we are now in the Orisa meta. Both Orisas traded out one for one. Sleep falls down late. Sunshine with a nice little foreplay with the overclock, and Mochi clean up on Petty Iso with 3 minutes and 20 seconds. That's a 2-0 for Mochi over United in Chaos.
Just an admirable stall coming through from United in Chaos, but it really does just feel like it was Mochi's series. And unfortunately for their opponents, United in Chaos were just having to constantly force to just play reactively on Claire's Orisa. No one expects to have to go toe-to-toe with an Orisa in this meta. You look at every single tier list, every single person really is sort of putting their money where their mouth is and saying, okay, here's the best tanks in Overwatch. I guarantee you'll hear D.Va, you'll hear Winston, and you would have previously heard Zarya. Now you're probably going to hear maybe Roadhog. Orisa was always towards the bottom end of the scale, middling around with like Doomfist, with her niche picks coming on through, as opposed to someone like Reinhardt and Hammond, who are a little bit lower towards the scale. But Orisa definitely was not considered to be number one. However, Claire making it look extremely, as you pointed out, annoying to play into. Orisa is extremely annoying in Overwatch 2, especially when you're on that Roadhog. As yeah, Javelin cancels out your Take a Breather ability. It's really hard as well to chunk through all of the armor that she has. The fact that she can immediately get into your face with the Javelin spin and the movement that it affords, as well as eating up all of those projectiles, puts a lot of pressure onto the DPS as well to be able to chunk her down once the Fortify runs out. And Claire, off of all of the distraction that she was providing for her team, was able to get everyone else so much space that it was essentially free reign for Mochi when everything was in their favor.
It was just so good. The smart plays from them. But guys, we'll be going to a short break. When we come back, we'll have an interview after this. So we will be back in just a moment. See you guys shortly. everyone, and welcome back to the Calling All Heroes Challenger Cup. And we just closed out the series of qualifier number 2. And with us, we have one of the winners from Team Mochi. We have Sunshine with us. How are you doing, Sunshine? Congratulations on your win.
Hi, thank you. I'm really good. Everyone was really, really excited after the last match. Really loud, even though it's kind of late where all of us live.
Okay,
yeah.
First of all, I have to ask, Claire on the Ursa. How exactly does the team make this work when every other team is just running Winston or Roadhog?
I'm not gonna lie to you. I mostly just like click on them. I don't do a lot of the like strategy. But I see people go Orisa and ranked a lot against Roadhog, so I don't know. Maybe it works. I think the javelin spin's pretty powerful.
How do you feel as a Sojourn playing against Roadhog? Is it just easy to build up that railgun shot?
Yeah, Sojourn versus Hog is really annoying for everybody except for me, because I just get to farm infinite rails and no one gets to play the game until I hit a shot.
So speaking then of the Sojourn matchups, obviously you were going toe-to-toe with Rain and having to build up Railgun Altfire as well as trying to keep pace with Overclock. How exactly is the pressure of having to deal with an amount of damage that the Sojourn can just burst through at any moment from the other side?
It's really important on Sojourn that you kind of like keep the enemy Sojourn in check, and that like you're building rail like as much as possible before she can, so that you can like have it and she can't peek you. But my team is really good at like helping me like calling when she has rail, and being aware of that. It just makes my life like a lot easier on Sojourn.
Oh, you guys do that a lot? You call when they have rail to make sure you know when the blue me's ready to go.
If she has rail, she has rail, she used. She has rail, she used. You hear that every like 7 seconds because she builds it so fast. But it's such an important call out.
Yeah. No, it really is. Well, in this meta specifically, I guess, like against the Roadhog, are you guys trying to also be aware of when that Roadhog is maybe trying to go for a hook and stuff? Because, I mean, sometimes that Roadhog was kind of a thorn in your guys' side, right?
Absolutely, yeah. But we managed to make it work.
Speaks for itself.
Were you expecting as well the Paraiso pick to come on through? Because obviously we've seen King's Row be the only map really picked on Hyper today.
Yeah, I'm kind of sick of King's Row. I'm not gonna lie. I'm a little bit glad it was a different map.
Yeah, I mean, Paraiso obviously worked out well for you. And I guess in the Sojourn matchup specifically, last question for you. I mean, how do you feel against the other Sojourn, taking those duels? Do you feel comfortable maybe later on? Because you guys are 2-1 now, moving forward against maybe some of the Altiora Sojourns and some of the other ones in the tournament?
I think on Sojourn, you kind of have no choice but to have like a bit of an ego, because it really is like your job to like you're the only one that can kill Sojourn with that comp unless like a Hawk hits a hook. So I'm pretty confident in the future and gapping like other players on Sojourn. I'm pretty good with her.
You type in DPS diff in chat?
Not like that, because Rain's really good. The Sojourn I played against, but we were just better.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Well, thank you, Sunshine, for coming to the interview. Congratulations on your win. You looked phenomenal out there, and thank you for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good day.
Sunshine from Team Mochi, and they played amazing, right? I mean, that was such a good series from them against, a team like Chaos, where they put up a fight, right? That Roadhog was really hard to deal with, yet they shut it down as a team. Sunshine played amazing. So did Claire on that Orisa. And as a team, they did a great job at just countering maybe a little bit of that Roadhog cheese.
Not just the Roadhog as well, but like you heard from Sunshine in the interview, right? They were keeping a track of Rain's progress, making sure that when they knew that the railgun was ready to fire, no one peeked. And then the second they knew it had been expended, that was when Sunshine was able to really make her move. And we saw it most effectively and brutally, I would say, on Lijiang Gardens. You really can see that they are keeping that Sojourn's positioning in check. Everyone on the team is very much aware of Rain's positioning. And then when you're firing into Sleet on the Roadhog, who, yeah, she's hitting her hook. She's doing a very good job, especially on Paraiso. But just like Orisa, you're a walking hitbox, which means that the Sojourn is constantly farming up all of that damage. And because Slee is always having to move forward and aggress in, you always, if you're Sunshine, get the opportunity to build Railgun Charge faster than Rain, which means as that Sojourn defending, not only are you keeping Railgun Charge from previous fights, but you're also ramping Railgun up faster than your opponent in the current fight, which allows you to have a lot more control of tempo.
It's just so clean from them as a team. I mean, what a series for Mochi. But guys, we have the standings and our schedule ready to go. So we are going to swap on over to that. As you can see, Pursuit with the 3-0 on the day, as are Dart Monkeys. But this is the top 16 in the Challengers Cup in the qualifiers number 2, leading into day 2, Moxie. What do you think we have to look forward to? Because obviously it's a bit of a surprise. Vancouver Titans Blue, they did drop a game earlier on.
Yeah, it's going to be a very close day 2. As you can see, a lot of these teams going to be still drawing around that 2 wins, 1 loss mark. Number 1 on Overbuff, being one of those surprises. I think they definitely had some really good chops. Unfortunately, they had a very strong matchup that they had to contest with. All of our other teams sitting on those 3 back-to-back wins. So Pursuit, Dart Monkeys, Timeless Ethereal, and Altiora Nimbus definitely looking strong contenders to be finding their way into those top 4 spots and making it into the main event qualifying in December. I know for sure Dart Monkeys have got to be a personal favorite.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, they have some of the streamer talent that we all know and love in Aspen and SK and in Barcode. And I mean, you can go off and name every person on the roster. What a fantastic job by them. But all these 2-in-1 teams, all these 3-0 teams who signed up for this week or for this qualifier, it's amazing to see. I mean, this is going to be a hard top 16 to crack to make sure you guys can make it towards that playoff on the final day on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not able to make it into the qualifiers, you can see it means so much to these players. Just having this space to be able to safely build a community and be able to play at a competitive level so that they can branch off from here into places like Open Division with that experience in their belt. It really is great to see it starting to come into Overwatch 2 as we can have a look at the schedule, because we're wrapping up today, Dustin. It is the first day of the 3 days in qualifiers number 2. We're going to be back tomorrow, though, with, again, a return to the Swiss stage. So same format. Format's only going to change on November 20th, which is when we hit playoffs, and it really goes down to the wire as we narrow down all of our participants to the top 16 teams in a single elimination, with the top 4 advancing to that main event in December to go alongside all of the teams already through from the qualifiers of the first part of Calling All Heroes. And my goodness, what teams are waiting to meet them on that stage.
Yeah, and $25,000 prize pool is nothing to scoff at. I mean, that will be the final event in December, and I think every team here is really fighting for those spots. And I think you mentioned it. I mean, off broadcast, Moxie, we talked about it. I mean, it seems like there's a lot of teams who signed up on the CallingAllHeroes.gg website to actually sign up for this tournament, for not only for players but also for casters. You could do both of those things and sign up on the website. And I think leading into the finals in December and leading into Sunday, even tomorrow. I mean, it's such an exciting time because we have so many teams signing up for this tournament and are really joining the community and joining the Discord and making sure that they can be involved and actually participate in such a high quality competitive tournament.
We're seeing diversity as well in terms of hero picks. Like, I am here to get to see these compositions come through, because when we saw the finals coming through from Overwatch League, and it was literally just Winston and Winston and Winston and more Winston, I was like, okay, with Zarya out of the meta, Winston's probably just going to be the most picked tank hero. And then Korean contenders starting to feel the Roadhog from coming out. We're seeing Claire as well on that last matchup, showing that Orisa against Roadhog is still going to have a niche spot in meta. I cannot wait to see what some of these players are able to come up with in terms of using all of these changes and the heroes that they're running up against to be able to pull some real curveballs and put a little bit of a spanner in the works of some of these teams planning.
Everybody's doing a good job at just making sure they can regroup and make sure they have different compositions for this week. But guys, that'll be it for us here. For me, Dustin, and our prod, and Moxie. It's been a pleasure having you today, and we will see you tomorrow for day number 2 of the Swiss tournament. You're not going to miss it, because those seedings matter for Sunday, the final day for the last qualifiers before Qualifier 2 ends. So see you guys tomorrow. This is Dustin and Moxie out.